After years of enduring condescending remarks, I finally told my father's infantilizing friend that I hated him. Original post August 10, 2023. Years ago, my dad met Harold through mutual friends, and they hit it off. I was 18 and in college when I met him, and we never had a close relationship. However, he always seemed to think of himself as a family friend and was extremely infantilizing and condescending towards me. Every time I saw him, I'd try to tell myself it wasn't that bad, only for him to prove me wrong less than a minute later. Harold would disrespect my boundaries, say things like, "You're not 19, you're a baby," while I was talking to other people, and patronize me, my education or my hobbies whenever he had the chance. He always noticed that annoyed me, to which he'd playfully ask if I hated him. I always said no, but only for my father's sake. The final straw came the day Harold interrupted a barbecue to say, "I really like you, even though you're an impolite brat." I was 20 years old. I'd been quiet all day, working on a paper during the barbecue, but replied patiently and politely whenever anyone addressed me. And even if that hadn't been the case, I knew he didn't have the right to talk to me like that. After that, I started making an effort to avoid any events I knew he'd be attending. Yesterday was my father's girlfriend's birthday. They threw a small lunch party at my dad's apartment. I went there with my fiancé and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there. I hadn't seen him in months, but he still talked to me as if I was a dumb child. Never mind that I'm engaged, a mother and 26 years old. I spent the whole party ignoring his helpful advice about me being too young to get married or be a mom. It helped that most of the other guests seemed to disagree with him. My baby spent most of the afternoon sleeping. There's a bassinet in my old room. He woke up hungry, so I went to breastfeed him and excused myself from the party for a while. I got back to jokes and comments, all from Harold, about how I was probably struggling if my son was managing to leech me away for so long. He went on to interrupt a conversation I was having with another of my dad's friends to question pretty much everything about my parenting. He doesn't even have custody of his daughter, by the way. And to make more comments about my age. I decided I couldn't take it anymore after he asked if I'd thought about giving my baby up for adoption. I got my son and told my fiancé we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. When we got to the door, Harold came to ask why we were leaving. I tried to make up an excuse, but he kept trying to make us stay. After a small back and forth, he jokingly asked if I hated him. And this time I said, "Yes, I do. Can we go now?" He didn't say anything and we left. On the way home, my fiancé said he was proud of me. My father called this morning to say the opposite, and we had a small fight, but ultimately decided to drop the subject. I'm sure this isn't over, but if it keeps going, it won't be because of me. This is far from my proudest moment, and a small part of me regrets it, but I'm done with that guy. Edit. Jesus Christ superstar, that's a lot of comments. To answer some common questions, I don't think Harold is in love with me. Harold didn't tell me to give up my son. He asked if I'd thought of doing so when I got pregnant. It was still an awful question, especially since he interrupted a conversation I was having with someone else, my dad's girlfriend's pregnant friend, who was asking about my own pregnancy and delivery, to ask it. I don't like making a big deal out of things unless necessary. If I'm uncomfortable, I leave. If I don't like someone, I avoid them. It's usually less stressful. The fight between me and my father ended when I told him about the adoption comment. I don't think he gets that's not the only reason I left, but it was definitely what broke the camel's back. I really don't need my father to stop being friends with Harold. He's a grown man capable of making his own crappy decisions. I never told my dad I hated Harold because I never thought I had to like him in the first place. He's my father's friend, not mine. And I've been distancing myself from Harold since I was 20, meaning I haven't seen him much in the last 6 years. My fiancé was on the other side of the room and wasn't listening to Harold's comments. I filled him in when we got to the car. He's 100% on my side. Update August 18, 2023. Hey guys. I wasn't going to write an update, but I just got some free time and I figured I'd fill you in. I'll start by addressing the very frequent assumption that Harold has feelings for me. I really don't think that's the case. His comments always came out as annoying and condescending, but never sexual. But I will say that your comments scared the shit out of me. And the fact that the general consensus was "fuck Harold" was weirdly heartwarming. I also want to add that, while I did regret what I said a little bit, I never doubted I'd done the right thing. I think most of my regret came from the fact that my 8 years of keeping the peace were over. It took some time for the relief to sink in. Truth be told, I've been wanting to do this since the barbecue incident, which was when I went from, I don't like that guy to, I can't stand that guy. My father called Harold the day after I made my previous post. When confronted about the adoption comment, he tried to twist it as him being genuinely concerned about me being a mom so soon, and that he didn't think I knew what I was doing. He did apologize to my father. I don't buy any of that. The next day, my dad told me about the call. He said I should forgive Harold for what he thought was an honest misunderstanding. He also told me I should apologize too, since I'd overreacted by telling Harold I hated him for such a small reason. Many of Harold's past comments were made with my father close by. It often happened in the middle of conversations with other people, so he'd be too distracted to register them. He also wouldn't notice them most of the time. My dad doesn't pay enough attention to anything that doesn't either concern or anger him, and he'll most likely forget it until he gets angry at something else later anyway. He's like a meth head goldfish. We also have different definitions of what's offensive, so he'd never think they were a big deal. I told my father I wasn't exaggerating when I said I hated Harold, and that the adoption comment was far from being the only reason. I listed most of the condescending treatment and comments I could remember, including the ones from the party. He didn't remember any of them. I made it very clear that I'd hated Harold for years prior to the party, and that I had nothing to apologize for. I then stated that I'm no longer coming to any events Harold is invited to. My father doesn't need to stop being friends with him, or even stop inviting him to stuff, but he can no longer expect me to show up as well. I will ask him beforehand, and if he lies, I'll leave. My father called me dramatic, but I pointed out that I've been avoiding Harold for 6 years now and no one even noticed, so it clearly wasn't a problem. I've only seen him a handful of times since the barbecue incident, and only twice for more than a few minutes, the lunch party last week and another party back when I was pregnant. It clearly didn't ruin my father's life. I'm not obliged to like his friends any more than he is to like mine. There was some back and forth, but he agreed to my terms. We spoke yesterday about something else, and he mentioned Harold was upset. I ignored that. I'm not going NC with my father. Yes, I'm very well aware he's an asshole, and I came really close to cutting ties with him in the last few years, but I ultimately decided it wouldn't really fix anything. Maintaining my relationship with him has gotten a lot easier since I moved out, as we only see each other a couple times a month. He gets frustrated that I don't call or text much, but doesn't complain about it anymore. I don't see the point in going NC with someone who no longer has any say in how I live my life. I'd rather just take note of what my father did wrong when I was growing up and then make sure to raise my own kid differently. He's on thin ice though, and has been for some time. He's not allowed to babysit, mostly because I don't trust him to spend more than an hour alone with a baby without falling asleep on the couch. I began pushing for him to start doing therapy back when I got pregnant, and he finally got started back in June. His behavior around me and my younger sister, who still lives between our very divorced parents, has improved a lot since, and I've made it clear to him that he won't be allowed near my son if he stops attending. This is the first time in my life my father has improved his behavior. It's hard to be hopeful, but I'm trying. And if I ever do go NC with my father, it won't be because of fucking Harold. So that's it. Overall, I'm glad I don't have to deceive anyone anymore. My relationship with my father is rocky, but I won't dwell on it. My main responsibilities are my son, my fiancé, and my job, and that's not changing anytime soon. And to those who mentioned Jesus Christ Superstar and Blue Oyster Cult in my last post, has anyone told you you're fucking awesome today? Because you are. New update, a shortish. Harold update September 11th, 2024. Hey guys. Wow, I can't believe it's been over a year since I last posted about this. I planned on updating some time ago. These past few months, I've been caught up in raising a toddler, getting married, yay, working like crazy and rewatching Supernatural. Needless to say, I've been busy. Openly avoiding Harold has been working pretty well. My father has been respecting my boundaries. Whenever he invites me and my husband over for lunch or dinner, I ask who else will be there. If Harold's coming, he tells me. He hasn't lied so far, and doesn't usually insist when I tell him I'm not coming. Since my last post, I've only seen Harold once, at my dad's birthday party a few months ago. Yes, I knew he'd be there. My father promised he'd tell him not to talk to me. Also, some of my father's friends' kids, most of whom I used to babysit, would be there. I hadn't seen them in a while, and I love them more than I hate Harold. I ended up spending most of the party with my son and the kids. Harold didn't talk to me at all, so I guess my father was true to his word. My husband and I did catch him staring at us a couple times, but I decided to ignore it. I caught my husband staring back once, and the walking marshmallow I married actually managed to look threatening. I love this man. You know who did talk to me? Harold's girlfriend. Yes, he has one now. She interacted with me twice. First, she came over to coo over my son before making a comment about how he needed a haircut. Ha ha ha, I already hate you. Later, she approached me and said, "You're shy, aren't you?" I said no. She laughed and said, "Yeah, you're shy." She said all that in the same tone one would use to talk to a 6-year-old. I managed to keep my expression schooled. Otherwise, I would have told her I'm not shy. I just chose to spend the whole party with the kids because they were better company than her and her annoying ass boyfriend. So yeah, based on both my interactions with her, Harold's girlfriend is insufferable. In other words, they're perfect for each other. I don't have much else to add. My father broke up with the woman he was dating last year, long fucking story, and has a new girlfriend. She is not annoying or psychotic, and I actually really like her. They won't last a year. My relationship with my father is still not perfect, by the way, but it has improved. He's actually started apologizing to me a lot more often. I don't know whether it's the therapy or the fact that motherhood has apparently made me terrifying, but I'll take it. And I'll give credit where it's due. He's a very good grandfather. I'm also glad my father is respecting this Harold boundary. I very much don't want this man in my life. Honestly, I'm pretty satisfied right now. My little boy is thriving. Part of me really misses the baby times, but I grow prouder and prouder every day. Getting to know my kid has been fantastic. I caught my wife cheating with her old fling on a hike. It turns out she and her friends had been using him as a surrogate joystick. I, Ali, 38, am currently on a camping hiking trip with my wife Liv, 36, and 3 other married couples, Dom and Kate, Sean and Sarah, Bill and Miranda, as well as Liv's longtime friend Ian, 38, and his boyfriend OD, whose real name is Orlando, and no, he was not named after the dog from Garfield. We're all in our mid-30s to early 40s and enjoy spending time outside. We've been wanting to go on this hike for a while. We camp at night and walk throughout the daytime. Everything was great until early evening on the 3rd day of our 8-day journey. We stopped to camp and my wife and I decided to explore the surroundings. We discovered a little waterfall feeding into a creek that followed the trail we had been trekking. It was roughly 5 feet tall and flowed largely onto rocky rocks below. My wife stated that she wanted to rinse off in the stream and waterfall but did not want to soak her clothes. I urged her to go for it because we weren't far from the others and the location was secluded enough. I responded, "If you make it quick you could be in and out in no time." She did exactly that, lingered for a moment before stepping out and air drying with a tiny towel. Ian arrived unexpectedly from behind some trees after she had quickly put her shorts and panties back on. My wife was still topless. Here's where everything got weird. Neither of them responded. She proceeded to dress casually, and Ian approached as if he had seen her naked 100 times before. He told us that Dom wanted us to know something, but I can't remember what. My wife and Ian exchanged small talk before we all headed back to camp. It is now day 5. The hiking track leads to a small town, where we want to spend the night at a local inn to rest, resupply supplies and recover. For the past 2 days, I've been thinking about what happened at the waterfall. I tried to keep my thoughts hidden, but my wife questioned me this morning why I was so quiet yesterday. I told her I was weary, but in reality, I can't stop thinking about something that happened between her and Ian previously. I would normally be less skeptical, but I know Ian is not gay. I've known him for around 8 years and consider him a friend. We husbands and OD are the outliers in this group, as the 4 wives and Ian have been buddies since college. I've asked my wife before if she's ever dated Ian, and she's always responded no. I also inquired if Ian and any of the other ladies in the group had ever been in a relationship, and she denied that too. I might be delusional, but their relationship felt too similar, especially since she was still topless. My wife is usually very conservative about her body, so her lack of reaction to Ian's presence struck me as odd. I have no tangible reason to believe anything is wrong, but I can't shake the sensation that there's more to their history than friendship. Am I being paranoid? Or is this a red flag? I am really trying not to leap to conclusions. Update 1. It's early morning on day 6 and I wanted to give you all an update. I told my wife Liv about what happened at the waterfall. I wanted to talk to her while we still had some privacy before heading back out on the trail, and I'm glad I did. I started as non-confrontational as possible, simply remarking that it seemed strange that she wasn't concerned by Ian's presence despite the fact that she was topless. If she had responded in any other way, I would have dropped it, but she became really defensive immediately. Is this why you've been moody? It's not a huge deal. Everyone has seen breasts before, including Ian. You have to grow up. This truly alarmed me. She rarely reacts forcefully until she feels bad about something. I probed harder and she grew more reactionary and defensive, attempting to deflect and belittle every question I posed, with a dash of gaslighting thrown in. I finally had enough and told her, either tell me what's going on or I'm going to confront Ian, who you know won't lie. This is when Liv revealed that she and Ian had a previous sexual relationship. I became enraged and demanded to know why she lied to me after I had previously asked her about it. She claimed she did not lie. They never dated. It was simply an FWB, friends with benefits situation before we became formal. I asked her, startled and agitated, so you were sleeping with him when we first started dating? She retorted, you don't have to be so vulgar. I don't want to discuss this right now. Can't we have this conversation when the trip is over? I said, absolutely not. Either you tell me everything now, or I'll start interrogating your pals. I believe she saw how serious I was and decided to reveal the whole truth. The first part I already knew. She had a string of bad relationships and dating encounters. Liv ascribed a large portion of this to not getting to know the other person before leaping into bed with them. When we started dating, she asked if we could take it slow. I accepted since I was also seeking for something unique and I was extremely intrigued in Liv. She said I could date others until we chose to be official, but I told her I didn't want to date around and preferred to focus on one relationship at a time. She stated it made her really happy. Then she divulged something that would shock everyone if it became public. Liv, Kate, Miranda, and Sarah all had comparable FWB situations with Ian while dating their current husbands. Kate, who is now married to Dom, became fed up with dating the wrong guys shortly after graduation. During this time, she and Ian became FWB. When she met Dom, she urged that they take it slow and get to know each other before becoming intimate. Kate stated it was simple because she was still sleeping with Ian, meeting her sexual needs while focusing on the emotional part with Dom. Ian was happy with the arrangement, assuring her that it was all about finding her special someone. They would talk about Dom and sleep together, and when Kate realized she had found the one, they ended the FWB arrangement and she began her sexual relationship with Dom. They eventually got married. Kate later informed the other women about their agreement. Throughout the years, they each used Ian as a surrogate while looking for the one. I'm only the most current individual involved in this circumstance. I asked Liv to explain her role. The other women's marriages are their own business, but I was curious how this worked out for her. She informed me that after her former lover had too many narcissistic characteristics, she had had enough and wanted to meet a good guy, which I suppose was me. She asked Ian to help her in the same manner he had helped the other three. Ian agreed, explaining that the whole affair was about finding her a life partner. I feel he was sincere in everything. He's a free-spirited type of person. I've had serious chats with Ian, and he's the type of person that will help anyone with anything. We play golf together and he has been in my life since I began dating Liv. I didn't realize he was so involved. Essentially, he would listen, offer counsel, and talk through her emotions so she could wait until she felt comfortable with me. I felt like throwing up. It feels like the entire relationship was a lie. Despite this, I continued to seek answers. I asked when she quit seeing Ian. She claimed it was when we became official. I told her that I thought we were formal when we agreed to date, so I asked her when she considered us official. She explained, dating does not constitute two people as a couple. When you asked me to commit and we had our first intercourse, we were official. She stated that she and Ian had been strictly platonic since that night. I mentioned, that was 7 months into dating. So you've been sleeping with him for 7 months? She became silent and I knew the answer. I said, let me be clear, I would pick you up for a date and we would go out and have a great time, holding hands, cuddling, kissing and making out. Then I'd drop you off and you'd meet Ian, sleep with him and brag about what a terrific person I am? She retorted, don't make it sound so dirty. I was appalled. I wanted to run but we were in the middle of nowhere and there was no way out except to keep walking forward. In retrospect, I wish I had just left, but instead I probed for more information. I inquired, when you say you slept together, do you mean you used him just to get yourself off, or do you mean you did all the positions, foreplay and kinky things that we do? She became very silent again. I gently stated, You must answer my questions. I need to know, and I will find out, whether it is from you or one of them." With that, I motioned towards the other rooms. She answered slowly, "All of it, maybe even more than with you." The room began spinning, but I asked the dreaded question, "When? When was the last time?" She said, "The night before our first time together." I'd never wanted to leave someone more than I did at that moment, yet all I could do was sit there in shock. She attempted to console me, but I ordered her to stay away. I needed time. With nowhere else to go, I gathered some blankets and pillows and slept on the floor at the foot of the bed. I passed out for a few hours, but I'm now up and making this update. I want to march out of here, but there's a 12-passenger van at the end of the route that I don't have the keys for. I'll have to stay with these people for another 2.5 days, with another half-day travel back. I do not know what to do. Part of me can understand the reasoning, but largely I'm heartbroken and believe our entire relationship was a scam. I feel like a silver medalist, not a champion. I also have an intense need to share everything with everyone, because all of these other guys are in the same circumstance. We are all here on false pretenses. I do not know what to do. I have about 1 hour till everyone gets up and then I'll have to face Ian and my wife. Am I overreacting? Is this marriage worth saving? I do not see how we can go back. Update 2. I'm back in the comfort of my own house. Unfortunately, I and several others may be facing divorce. I was able to keep it together for the majority of day 6, but I'm sure everyone could tell something was up with me. I remained quiet and pushed myself to get back to the van. I guess Liv grabbed Ian aside about lunchtime and told him what I knew. After that, Ian began attempting to buddy up with me and converse, despite my request that he leave me alone. He persisted a couple more times before I snapped and told him to stop it in a very strong manner. Liv intervened, and they both took the hint. I needed more time to process. The next 24 hours went relatively smoothly. Everyone just kind of left me alone. However, after snapping at Ian, his temperament altered dramatically. He shifted from his customary laid-back demeanor to becoming slightly distant with everyone. He would occasionally make subtle passive-aggressive remarks, nothing too explicit, but clearly intended at me. By the 7th night, we had set up camp and I had relaxed a little, being more friendly with everyone. We were sitting around the campfire, finishing up the last of our meals. People were conversing, joking and sharing stories. Billy told a long embarrassing story from high school. It was a very humorous story about him and his first girlfriend, and he acted like an idiot. When he was done, he said something like, "I still can't believe I was ever that dumb. I still cringe just thinking about it." Ian responded, "Well, at least you grew up. Some people never grow up and overcome their past." He then stared at me with the most disdainful expression. In that time, I experienced an out-of-body experience and saw only crimson. The filter was gone and logic was out the window. It was on. "You know, Ian, you are right. Sometimes we just have to face the past head on." Liv attempted to interrupt, but I disregarded her totally. "How about we address the fact that you used to have **** all our wives while we were dating?" When I stated it, even the insects were quiet. "Oh fellas, didn't you know either?" "Yeah, while they were holding out on us to make a connection," I air quoted, "our future spouses were using Ian here as their human dildo." Dom and Billy seemed perplexed and angry. Sean had a look on his face like he'd just walked in on his grandmother fapping, complete train disaster astonishment. But I wasn't finished. I turned to Dom. It was Kate who devised this incredible strategy. She realized that the secret to developing a long-term relationship was to take things slowly and get to know each other before getting into bed. All you need to deal with the impulses is a best friend who will blow your back out when you get home from your dates all hot and bothered. Dom jumped in at this time. F*****Ku Ali. How do you know this? "Oh, I just found out 2 days ago that when I took Liv out for drinks, that wasn't going to be the only thing she was swallowing that night." At this time, Liv lost control and began yelling at me. "Why the F*** are you doing this? You don't have to." However, she was cut short when Sean stood up. "It is true. It is entirely true." Everyone fell silent and glanced at him. "I have known since we were dating. I didn't realize it was also true for everyone else until after we got married. I apologize, Billy. I swear I didn't realize it was you too back then." Billy's expression was one of dread. "Sean, we used to have double dates with Miranda and Sarah. We went out several times and then dropped them off at Ian's. Does that imply they—" Sean simply stared at him and nodded. I quickly turned to Ian. "Two at once, you hound dog." Then in a fit of bravery, I howled like a wolf. Which in retrospect is pretty terrible, but at the time, I thought it was funny. Arguments broke out among the couples all around us, but an audible gasp and whimper caught everyone's attention. OD sat there, tears spilling down his face. He looked at Ian and said, "Lies. More lies. It never ends. You always do this to me, no matter how much I forgive or how many times I return your affection." He then slapped Ian and bolted down the trail. Ian ran after him. The other three couples mumbled under their breath at each other, then began walking away in different directions. I stood beside the fire, feeling triumphant. Liv approached me and said, "I hope you're happy." I looked her in the eyes and replied, "I've never been more ******ing happy with myself in my whole life. I'm currently 80/20ths on obtaining a divorce." I suggested we postpone any major debates until we were home, unpacked, showered and nourished, because the only thing she would achieve before then is push me to my limits. At that instant, she turned and entered our tent. The following day was the most embarrassing 7 hours of my life. Between the morning pack-up, the hike to the van, loading up and the 4.5-hour journey home, only around 19 words were spoken. Now I'm sitting in my bathroom, newly showered. I'm going to eat some chicken nuggets, drink 3 Dr. Peppers and then converse with my wife. I'm not sure where we're headed from here, or where anyone else will wind up, but I know it won't be pretty regardless. Update 3. It's been 4 weeks since we returned from our trip and everything seems to have crumbled. Dom and Kate are getting divorced. They have been together the longest of the couples and have a 10-year-old son. Dom took the revelation quite hard. In addition to being together the longest, they also had the longest courtship period, 9 months. It's been a difficult pill for him to chew because he remembers they didn't truly got intimate until he began to wonder if he wanted to stay in the relationship. Now that he knows the truth, no matter what Kate says, he will always believe the delay was due to her desire to continue being with Ian. I sat down with Sean and had a couple beers one night. Despite the fact that we just met through our wives, we've been very close friends over the years. Sean stated that Sarah was straightforward with him when they began dating. She informed him she intended to wait at least 3 months before having sex, but that she would still meet with her FWB. Sean liked her but told her he was simply casually dating until he knew for sure, which Sarah was fine with. So, unlike the rest of us, Sean had a clear decision. Sean discovered he was falling for Sarah 2 weeks before the 3-month period ended, following a few double dates with Billy and Miranda. He informed her he wanted to be exclusive. She broke the 3-month limit and they became intimate that night and haven't looked back. Both were completely honest about their adventures at this time, and it appears that their candor paid off handsomely. Sean informed me they had a brief dispute after the campfire incident because Sarah felt they should have excused themselves rather than getting involved, but they are doing well as a couple overall. I've also got an update on Billy and Miranda. They are in the initial stages of reconciliation. Billy is clearly and understandably struggling. He believes she cheated and uses words to excuse it. They dated for 6 months before getting married, and they have 3 children under the age of 7, so they both believe they must try to make it work for the kids. Billy's toughest challenge is recalling dropping both Miranda and Sarah at Ian's on 2 consecutive occasions, knowing she had a threesome arranged. It reduced him to a shell of his former self. Miranda appears to have attempted to explain that they only did something on one of those nights, and it was more akin to a reverse train than a full threesome. Once again, semantics are used as an excuse. Sean assures me Miranda is speaking the truth, because Sarah was the second party and acknowledged it wasn't a true 3-way. But honestly, does it matter? Ian reached out to apologize. I told him to F*** himself, then blocked him. OD also reached out. I guess my revelation was the final straw for him. We have actually talked quite a bit over the last few weeks. We actually talked a lot over the course of a week, despite the fact that we had previously merely been cordial acquaintances. It turns out that Ian and OD had been on and off for 15 years. Ian presents a laid-back, selfless appearance to everyone else, but OD knows him to be incredibly self-centered and manipulative. Ian frequently breaks up with OD for brief periods of time or claims they are on a break so he can do whatever he wants without being labeled a cheater, only to return once he has had his pleasure. Looking back, OD sees that at least 2 of these breaks occurred during these dating situations. However, OD is the most upset since he has tolerated it for so long and has given Ian numerous opportunities. He says this was the final straw. He's returning to Santa Barbara and leaving Ian and the cold, nasty Midwest behind for good. Despite our exhaustion after the hike, Liv and I had the longest chat. I informed her right away that I was not interested in arguing, disputing, or anything like that. I said, "Tell me everything you want to tell me. I will not interrupt or ask questions until you finish, then I demand the exact same courtesy." She agreed. Her letter was filled with apologies and explanations. She would admit it was wrong, then explain why it was okay or point to a positive conclusion. She expressed her disappointment and hurt with how I behaved at the campsite, but she also realized that Ian deserved equal culpability for poking the bear. When she finished, she asked if I had any questions. I replied, "No." And then I began. I informed her that our entire relationship is based on false pretenses. I can see where you were coming from and why you tried the entire FWB thing. Your 3 best friends did it and scored excellent husbands before you. But on some level, all 4 of you had to understand that starting a relationship like this was wrong. It was tremendously distressing to learn that you were sleeping with someone else while we were getting to know each other, and I believe it impeded the natural progression of our relationship. I added, it has significantly altered my memory of our early days together. Do you remember that fantastic day we had approximately 4 or 4.5 months into our relationship? We spent the day together. It finished with us back on my couch, kissing, your shirt off, and me caressing you over your shorts. It was getting quite hot. You paused and apologized, stating you wanted to but weren't quite ready. You needed to be absolutely certain. I assured you that everything would be fine, and you gazed at me affectionately, kissed me passionately, and then departed. I stopped before saying, "I can only guess you left my place and went to Ian's." As she nodded, tears streamed down her face. I said, "I invested that energy in you. You chose to give it to someone else rather than returning it to me. I might have been able to get over this if it had ended in the 1st or 2nd month, when we were more relaxed. But after that, we spent a lot of time together and you maintained your relationship with him until the day before we became official. You enjoyed having us both. You did whatever mental gymnastics were required to justify it to yourself." I told her, "You may not realize it, but this last portion is the toughest part of it all for me. Learning that you were far more adventurous and exciting with him is like a dagger to the heart. It makes me feel like I'm second best, like I'm the retirement plan you choose, just good enough." She interjected saying, "No, not like that, I love you. He was only having sex, it was not real. That's how it is when they don't matter. It's simpler to be free and wild then." And so on. I waited for her to finish before saying, "Remember, we agreed it was my turn to talk." Afterward I remarked, "I see your point of view, but it is not mine. As your husband, I believe it is my responsibility to give you my full energy, emotional, physical, cerebral, and sensual. I believe I have accomplished this during the past 8 years. I believe you have given me your best in some areas, but I now see I have not received your best in others. And as a male, I have to acknowledge that sensuous energy is really essential to me. The fact that you did not trust me with all of your sensual energy was the determining factor. I do not think I can recover from this, and I want to file for divorce." The scene became chaotic from there. She started crying hard, asking, giving herself and pleading with me to start over. I eventually removed myself from the situation. Later, she mentioned that we were just in an emotional state right now and that I needed to give it some time. This gave me pause, and I agreed to her terms of 3 weeks. As I previously stated, it has been 4 years, and my feelings have been consistent. We met with a joint divorce lawyer, who will represent both of us. There are no children involved and we both want to sell the house, so the initial meeting went smoothly. She has been tremendously depressed, as have I, but this is for the best. Sometimes things simply don't work out. Thank you very much. My 12-year-old daughter left me for her rich stepfather. After losing her mother and being kicked out by her stepfather, she returns broke at 22. My ex-wife, then 41, female, and I, then 45, male, split up 12 years ago. She found solace in the company of a wealthy man. Sorry, there's no better way to put it. She was a stay-at-home wife and mother who had little interest in working or earning money. She wanted to stay at home and take care of the house and our daughter. I never forced my daughter to work after she was born, even though my finances were tight. I was working 2 jobs and earning enough money to eat well. However, my salary could not afford the luxury lifestyle she desired. I will not go into detail regarding my relationship with my ex. This piece is about Laura. Details regarding my ex-wife may be covered in another post. When Laura was 10, My ex-wife admitted that she had been sleeping with a wealthy man. She moved out on the same day that we filed for divorce. We became co-parents to Lara. Because I had 2 jobs and she didn't, we decided that I'd have Lara on weekends. I formed a strong bond with Lara. We have some fantastic adventure trips together. Even though the divorce was traumatic, spending time with her made me feel so much better. As time passed, I noticed Lara was delaying our meetings. Previously, every Friday, I looked forward to her email explaining what she planned to do over the weekend. However, the email's substance eventually changed to, "Sorry, I can't make it this weekend. We're going skiing," or, "We have other fancy sports or SL trips with stepfather." I initially ignored this, believing her stepfather was simply trying to keep her happy and that I should not be jealous. I eventually concluded Lara didn't want to see me as regularly. Our weekly meetings became bi-monthly, then monthly, only one day of the weekend. I saw she was not enjoying our time together as much as she used to. When it became clear that she was purposefully avoiding me, I challenged her. I tried to explain that I was doing everything I could to keep her happy, even overextending myself financially. Despite this, she continued to forsake our weekends together. She began lying, claiming she had schoolwork or projects on weekends when in fact, she was going out with her stepfather. Her excuses sounded real at times, but they were mostly made up. Whatever little time we had together, she would always complain about how much better it was going out with her stepfather since he doesn't look at the price tag before ordering anything. Even on trips I accompanied her on, she would prefer to spend time with her stepfather. She began grumbling about tiny inconveniences that previously did not disturb her. But she never stopped talking about the new PlayStation 5 or bike her stepfather gave her, or the expensive stuff her mother purchased. I felt she was too young to grasp that showering someone with material possessions is not love. The problem got worse when she ignored me for almost 3 months. Despite several calls and texts, I received no response. Desperate, I called my lawyer and told him everything. He informed me I could sue my ex-wife for alienating Lara. But Lara was 12 at the time and my lawyer advised that if she admitted in court that she no longer wanted to spend time with me, it may exacerbate the situation. Lara could say she needed more money to live up to her lifestyle, which could imply increased child support. Yes, I was already paying child support, despite the fact that her wealthy stepfather provided so much for her. I dropped the idea of suing my ex for custody. There was no purpose. My attorney advised we have a formal out-of-court conversation with them. It would help me understand what they wanted. I agreed to go this way, and my lawyer wrote them a letter with extensive allegations. He said that we desired an out-of-court settlement. I had a strange sensation that my ex-wife would refuse to talk since she had enough money and time to burn in a court action. To my astonishment, she agreed to discuss and resolve this matter in front of the attorney. My ex-wife's husband attended the conference, as did my ex-wife and Lara. They both swore they were beyond this and had no idea if Lara was ghosting me. They admitted they had no part to play in it and stood aside, allowing Lara to speak for herself. Lara then delivered the most devastating blow of my life. She demanded that I relinquish my parental rights. That was 10 years ago, yet I still remember the frightening event vividly. I was dead silent for, I'm not sure how long. My lawyer pressed me for a response, but I just stared at everyone. What do I say? When I looked at my ex-wife, her lips twisted into a smile, as if she knew what was going to happen. I took Lara's hand and murmured, "Baby, I hope you understand what you're saying. Giving away my parental rights would mean you could no longer call me dad. You would no longer be my daughter." She shook off my hand, stared straight in my eyes and said, "Yeah, that's what I want." I was astounded. I ran out of words to explain the implications of her decision. My lawyer attempted to explain the legal repercussions, such as property concerns and other issues, but she refused to change her decision. She looked at her stepfather and questioned, "Once he disowns me, you'll be able to adopt me as your daughter, right?" He nodded with wide eyes and replied, "Certainly, darling." Words cannot express the bitterness I felt at that moment. My world was destroyed, to say the least. I lost my sense of purpose in life. After my wife of 15 years cheated on me, Lara was the one bright spot in my life. She was the one I looked forward to after working 2 jobs. I didn't date anyone for 2 years after my divorce. I didn't have the time and didn't want to. I wanted to give Lara my complete love and attention. This is what I received in return. She wanted to get rid of me. My state was so pitiful that I couldn't think clearly. My lawyer borrowed some time to respond to them. I'm sure my ex and her husband slept well that night after seeing me in such a vulnerable position. My lawyer drove me home. After he went, I cried like a baby for hours in my empty house. My heart was filled with a wide range of emotions. I contacted my folks and informed them of Laura's desire. They were completely terrified and hurried over to comfort me. My parents, particularly my mother, were really close to Laura. She had been caring for her for over a year when my wife needed surgery and was forced to stay in bed. During that time, my mother took care of both Laura and my ex-wife. Mom gave it a go, but Laura insisted that I give up my parental rights. She passionately wanted to be her stepfather's daughter. He had informed her that he couldn't adopt her unless I relinquished my parental rights. I asked my lawyer what my choices were. He suggested we could sue them for manipulating Laura, but because she was 12, it would be difficult to show she was being manipulated. Besides, they had the money to pursue a long court action, whereas I did not. Plus, what's the sense of battling when the person I'm fighting for has already decided on their side? It was a lost battle. I had no choice but to swallow the bitter pill and give up my fatherly rights. I spent the next week wrapped up in my bed. I left my second job. Who do I work for now? I lost all motivation to get up in the morning and go to work. I took so many absences from my full-time job and struggled so hard that I was eventually dismissed. I moved to a different town, slept at a subway station, and walked around like a crazy person for days. I gradually got out of it, found a new job, went to the gym and enrolled in treatment. It took me around 2 years to recover. I didn't date, but I did go on a lot of solitary treks as a form of treatment. During one of these visits I met my current wife, Brianna. She had a 5-year-old daughter named Emma. After a while of dating, we moved in together. Brianna introduced me to Emma for the first time, and I broke down. She reminded me of Laura. I strongly wanted Emma to address me as Dad, but I held back. I did not want to damage myself again. I had a healthy but distant relationship with Emma. On her 12th birthday, Emma requested me to adopt her. I felt so overwhelmed. I now have 2 kids, Emma and Amy, a 3-year-old toddler, with my second wife. I believe I've provided enough context on my circumstance. Fast forward to a week ago. I was returning from work when I noticed a familiar face smiling at me. As I approached, I saw it was none other than Laura. I felt shivers, as if I had seen a ghost. She was taller, slimmer and much more attractive, but it was easy to recognize her. She ran up to me and hugged me, saying, "Dad, I'm your daughter Laura. I finally found you." I gazed at her with lifeless eyes and replied, "I have 2 daughters, but you're not one of them." Before she could say anything, I began walking away. She followed me, but I turned around and yelled, "Quit following me or I'll report you." I did not see her after that. The next day, she arrived at my residence. As soon as I opened the door, she exclaimed, "I apologize, I know you're angry with me but please hear me out. Mom has died and Dad, stepfather, has brought his mistress home. He doesn't love me as much as he did when Mom was living. He's cut me off financially and says I need to start earning my own money. When I pestered him, he threatened to disown me." I listened to her outburst and said with a straight face, "So what?" She began pleading with me for another opportunity. I screamed at her to leave and slammed the door in her face. She then went to my mother and apologized. She was able to persuade my mother with her emotions, and now she wants me to reunite with Laura for the sake of our family. The anguish she caused me is preventing me from reconciling with her. Am I in a *** hole? Update 1. Some of you inquired about my ex-wife, wondering whether she was a gold digger, if she manipulated Laura, or if it was my fault. So here's a quick background on my ex-wife. We dated for 2 years before we married. She worked at a neighborhood bar as a waitress while we were dating. I was a regular there, which is how we first met. She was living with a coworker. I worked one full-time job and lived in a studio apartment. That's when I acquired another job, saved more money and purchased a house to accommodate her. We were married, and she quit her work. For the first 6 to 7 years of our marriage, she was pleased and content with my salary. But then she began moaning about how her friends' husbands earned more money. She would even tell me that instead of settling for me, she should have waited longer to find a richer husband. It was offensive and we would have fights. Of course, I couldn't just stand there and take the obscenities she hurled at me. Eventually, our connection became chilly and distant. One day, she revealed that she had been sleeping with a wealthy man and would be going out to live with him. I didn't beg her to stay, But I did warn her that these wealthy men regard women like her as toys. They play with them and then discard them when they're finished. She said she didn't rush things this time, and she'd been seeing him for 2 years. She trusted him enough to live with him. After that, I didn't have anything to say. I kept quiet and sucked it up. Some of you pointed out that Lara was just 12 when she requested me to disavow her, and that I should have battled for her. You are correct that she was a juvenile when all of this occurred, and I do not deny that she was emotionally and financially misled. When she became 18, she had the option of contacting me, but she chose not to. She's now 22 and is just seeking out since her stepfather cut her off financially. Someone questioned how my ex-wife died. I didn't ask Lara about it, but she informed my mother that her mother died from a serious illness. Lara also had a liver condition and needed surgery as a baby. The problem is that Lara is exploiting my mother's emotions in order to assist her reconcile with me. Instead of discussing it over the phone, I went to see my mother and discovered that Lara had fed her sob stories to win her back. She stated she was homeless, had no employment or money, and had been living on the streets since her stepfather kicked her out. My mother requested I meet her and I accepted for her sake. Mom contacted Lara, and she arrived within an hour. I probed her aggressively and all of the facts came out. It turns out that her mother and stepfather spoiled her so much that she never finished high school. She was too busy vacationing and dining with them to think about schooling or school. I'm not sure what that man was thinking by indulging her in this way. I'm not sure what her mom was thinking when she allowed this to happen. Lara insisted that everything she did and said, including the parental rights issue and the ghosting, was part of her mother's plan to embarrass me. I asked her why her mother would do such a thing. She said it was because I didn't make enough to purchase her mom high-end clothing and accessories, which had embarrassed her in front of her friends. Lara claimed her mother devised the scheme to shame and humiliate me in front of her new husband. Listening to this was really distressing because it brought back all of the traumatic experiences I had worked so hard to forget. I told Lara that the past was done, her mother was gone, so what did she want from me now? She asked me to accept her as my daughter again. When I questioned what would happen after that, she quickly said, "It means I would be your daughter, and you would have my back." I answered, "Okay, I will accept you as my daughter, but all you will get from me is love. I'm planning to give Emma and Amy my property, insurance money and savings. But I shall cherish you as my eldest daughter. Will that work for you?" She froze. After stammering for a time, she responded, "Yeah, we can discuss money later." "You are not going to make a will now, are you?" I said, "Yes. Emma and Amy are already identified as beneficiaries in my insurance and savings accounts. I also bought a house in the new city and gave it to my second wife Brianna. I won't change any of that for you. If you're good with that, bring me the document I signed giving up my parental rights, and I'll have my lawyer prepare a new one to overturn it." She answered, "Yeah, sure." But remained mute for the rest of the conversation. My mother offered her food, but she rejected, citing a pressing matter. 2 weeks have gone and she has yet to turn up. I pointed this out to my mother, adding that it was all about money. Lara backed off after I informed her I wasn't going to give her any. What a useless piece of work she is. Update 2. I warned you it was all about money, and it certainly is. Lara returned to my mother's house 2 weeks ago, despite the fact that we had last spoken 4 months ago. She looked awful, with red puffy eyes covered in dark rings and rashes all over her body, possibly caused by swallowing something she was sensitive to. She was crying and screaming for assistance. She demanded money from my mother. Lara explained that she had been living with a friend since her stepfather disowned her, but that friend had now thrown her out as well. She claimed to have sold the majority of her items to buy food in recent months, but she now had no money or possessions. Mom questioned why she hadn't acquired a job. Lara claimed she dropped out of school and no one would hire her. Mom recommended communicating with a friend who manages a bakery to see if she could get Lara a job as a cleaner or something similar. After all, there are many careers that do not require a high school graduation. Lara remained mute and wailed, asking my mother for money. Mom gave her some packaged meals and $100. She also questioned why Lara had not brought the paperwork to challenge the disownment. Lara stated that it was at her stepfather's place and that she would retrieve it next time. She accepted the money and food, then left. Mom didn't tell me about this visit at first because she assumed I'd be upset with her. 3 days earlier, Lara returned to my mother's house with the same sob story. Mom asked what she did with the money, and Lara responded she spent it on groceries. When Mom inquired about the job, Lara did not provide a direct answer. This time, Mom refused to give her any more money, claiming she didn't have any to spare and no more food. She simply handed her a loaf of bread. As Lara was preparing to leave, Mom inquired whether she had changed her mind about being my daughter. Lara responded, "What is the sense of having him as my father if he isn't going to give me any money? He has given everything to his beggar stepchildren." Mom was taken aback by her statements and chased her out of the house, threatening her not to return. Mom quickly called to tell me about both trips. I did feel upset with her for assisting Lara the first time, and I warned Mom to be cautious while answering the door at night. Based on Mom's description of Lara's appearance, it appears that she is engaged with bad company and may pose a threat to Mom, especially since she is living alone following Dad's death last year. We want to seek a restraining order against Lara in case she returns and causes trouble again. Today I went to my mom's residence. I went outside to see whether Lara was around, but I couldn't find her. I will be staying here for a week. I don't know what to do, but I'm sad about her. If what she said about my ex-wife is correct, my ex went too far in her attempts to disgrace me, destroying her own daughter's life. If Lara is lying about it, she has already paid the price for her nasty behavior. By the way, someone remarked on my previous post that everyone has the freedom to make their own decisions, and Lara wasn't bad for choosing her stepfather over me. She was simply on the wrong side. I suppose that's true. She made a decision 10 years ago, and she has to live with the consequences for the rest of her life. Fiancé took our dog for a walk while I was getting ready for dinner and it led to a heated argument. Am I the asshole? Original post. It feels ridiculous to ask about this, but I'm starting to think I'm missing some key bit of information here. I guess I'm asking that if I am, why? Because it wasn't my intention, and I certainly would like to prevent it from happening again. This Friday my wife and I had reservations at her favorite restaurant, because her birthday is right around the corner. We had a party planned, but this was supposed to be our night together alone. The way the reservation was set up, I would come home from work, change and immediately drive there as it's around an hour and a half by car. Yes, we live in hick country, yes I am a hick, and no we aren't moving that I've been made aware of, lol. The day had gone great so far, and from what I knew everything was going according to plan. I got home, and she's behind schedule getting ready. This is not something that happens for her ever, and I was surprised, but the reason wasn't her fault, and it was barely a 20-minute deviation. However, I was just waiting by the door during that time and the dog decided he needed out, so I took him for a walk around our yard. It took maybe 5 minutes, and I cleaned everything up and had him put up before my wife was ready. We made it to the dinner reservation by the skin of our teeth, and that was that. We had a great date and I would have never known she was upset with me until the next morning, when she said that she had never known me to be so impatient. Which confused me, and she rolled her eyes and said she noticed that I took the dog for a walk before we left to make her hurry, and that she just didn't want to let my bad mood ruin the night. I had been in a great mood, and told her so, but she refused to believe it, and got pretty angry, which I haven't been able to calm her down from to even talk about all this again. I really don't understand what I've done wrong here, and I don't know what to do. AITA? OP's comments. Commenter, NTA, it sounds like she may really be annoyed about something else. Try talking again to see if you can get under the real issue. Did something happen at work or did she have another expectation that was not met? OP, not that she talked about. The day went pretty well from what I know, but I'll definitely try to talk to her about her job. She hasn't had any trouble from this lot yet that I know of, but it is a newer job, and there may be things I don't know. Thank you. I probably wouldn't have ever connected that it could be related to work. Commenter, NTA. Can you lay it out clearly for your wife that you don't understand what went wrong? Hell, maybe just show her this post. I'm assuming the anger is out of character for her, so a conversation is a good idea. OP. Yeah, neither of us are angry people. That's the biggest reason I posted. She's been pretty annoyed with me before, but this is different. Commenter. Yeah, that's very odd then. There might be some other stuff brewing under the surface, or she was just really tired that day? OP. Someone mentioned work stuff and I'm gonna ask about that. She did start a new job not too long ago, and even though she hasn't said anything to me yet, it's new enough that I wouldn't know yet. Commenter. I am not seeing anything that you did wrong here. Do you know why she was 20 minutes late getting dressed? Maybe the reason she was late getting ready is tied to what made her get upset. Taking the dog out was not wrong. It isn't like you walked around the block. You stayed in your own yard. OP. Yeah, she had gotten ready at our neighbor and her friend's house up a small hill, and walked back over, but took a tumble on the way. She wasn't hurt at all, but she had to change her dress and fix her hair. Not the first time she's fallen like that, and I worry about it. But she says it isn't a big deal. Commenter. My dad used to do this action every time we went out. This is his silent way of telling us, hurry up, don't make me wait. Maybe someone did this to your wife in the past, so she got irritated when you did it. Oh oop. Huh, yeah. She's never said anything about that, but I can see how that would have ticked her off in that case. Thank you so much for the advice. And I should edit that thanks into the post. Less than 20 comments and almost every one of them have brought up something I didn't think of. Commenter. NTA. Maybe she has an undiagnosed UTI or she's unaware that she's pregnant and hormonal. If this is not normal, then those are the first two medical options. After that she has built up resentment over something or this is a trigger from her childhood. OOP. UTI? Those are pretty dangerous. I think that's what put my mom in the hospital last time. Do you think that's really a possibility? Update post. Hello. I feel weird updating, but I have good news and want to share somewhere. And here seems as good a place as any right now. And actually, I wanted to thank everyone for commenting, and the people who reached out privately with advice. You really helped me calm down, and figure out how to approach talking about this while seeing where my wife could have been coming from. One person even called exactly what was going on, something I dismissed right away, stupidly. So I came home the next day and brought home pizza from her favorite spot in town, which we never get because of crowds, because I figured even if I wasn't outright wrong, there was no reason not to make the conversation nice. So after dinner, I asked about the dog again, and after a lot of back and forth and crying that I'll skip explaining, she explained that for the past week or so she had been feeling weirdly emotional, and she couldn't explain it. Some people had mentioned some things here about different health stuff that could cause those sorts of symptoms, and I got pretty nervous and got her in at her doctor's office within a couple of days. Well, imagine our embarrassment walking out 5 minutes after getting in and doing a test we could have done at home, for like $20, without including insurance companies. She is going to talk to her therapist about meeting every week for a while she adjusts, deals with hormonal changes. We've been laughing about it now because it never crossed our minds she could have been pregnant. Someone commented on it, but I still didn't believe it, because I am dumb. Never mind that we're both in our 20s or that she switched birth control like 2 months ago, and we may or may not have had unprotected sex during the switch week. Anyway, as stupid as we may be, we are still excited but waiting until the 12-week mark to tell our families. However, I've been itching to tell someone and can't wait any longer. So here's an update. Haha. Wife approved, because it's anonymous. Thanks again for the help. I appreciate it a lot, even if I didn't take the advice of the person who was right. Comment. Commenter. Congrats. And maybe still have that talk with your neighbor about the path to make sure she stays safe. OOP, already working on it. The neighbor isn't against the idea, just against paying for it, haha. Which is no problem for me, since I'm the only one complaining. I reluctantly agreed to an open marriage with my wife. When I fell in love with a coworker, my ex lost control and tried to ruin everything. I, 47, have been married to Lisa, 42, for 17 years, however we only lived together for roughly 7 years. A decade ago, I discovered Lisa cheating on me, and she admitted that she had fallen out of love and desired an open marriage. We have 2 children. The older was a toddler and the younger was still a baby when this occurred. It was heartbreaking to me. She stated that having back-to-back pregnancies had a negative impact on her physical and emotional health, and she wished to freshen up. Unfortunately, her method of relaxation was to bring various men into bed. Divorce was complicated at that stage, with 2 small children and a meager income. I decided to let her live her life as I relocated upstairs in our duplex home. We became co-parents for our children. It wasn't as hunky-dory as it seems. We split up with a lot of hatred and name-calling, largely from me since she cheated. But soon, we got caught up in work and life and I moved on and became more relaxed. A few months ago, I met Kathy, 35F at work. She's my junior, and we hit it off immediately. Bonding with her felt more natural than anything I'd experienced in a long time. It wasn't a romantic connection at first. We connected as understanding co-workers and spent time together outside of work, still simply as friends. We made out last month and I had a unique feeling for her. She has been crashing at my apartment on a regular basis since then, which technically affects my wife. Lisa is still my wife and we are still married. Lisa has been acting strangely these days. Kathy hangs out with me and attempts to command authority like a wife. I had to remind her that we are separated, and I can live my life as she has for years. It is difficult to express what she has been doing, but I will try. Kathy and I were eating dinner one evening in my kitchen. Lisa arrived and asked, "Can I join you guys?" It became an extremely awkward time for both of us. Kathy and I gazed at each other, surprised. Lisa sat down with her dish without waiting for a response. We ate supper like strangers, smiling politely despite Lisa's forced chat. Our supper was ruined, but I gave Lisa the benefit of the doubt, believing she was simply trying to fit in. Then there was another incident in which she was bossy, attempting to impose her rights as a wife. Kathy and I were upstairs watching a movie when Lisa barged in and requested me to join her. When I questioned what was wrong, she answered, "Your children need you. The younger one needs your assistance with a scientific project." I was surprised since we had divided the schoolwork. I help the older child, and she takes care of the smaller. I informed her that I had already done my part for our eldest kid and that this was now her responsibility. She became enraged and exclaimed, "Is this kid not yours? Instead of assisting him, you're here lurking." This resulted in a full-blown confrontation between Lisa and me. Kathy, feeling embarrassed, excused herself and left. Kathy told me after that episode that she would no longer hang out at my apartment, though we continue to meet at hers. But why should I sacrifice my life when I've never touched hers? She's been living her life her way, bringing whatever mail she wants into the house. And I've always looked the other way. Lisa is purposely attempting to break the link I've formed with someone. I addressed Lisa the other day, and she replied she wasn't worried by my close relationship with Kathy. She refused to accept her actions, claiming I was overthinking. I informed her that if she continued to intervene in my life, I would consider getting divorced. She had tears in her eyes and apologized for disturbing us. She was only worried about our son's unfinished assignment and was preoccupied with her work, so she asked me for assistance. I claimed it wasn't a call for help, it was nothing short of gaslighting. She then contacted Kathy, apologized and invited her to come over. Kathy accepted the apologies but set boundaries, explaining that she preferred to meet me at her home. I am currently in a difficult situation. I want to get rid of Lisa, but I'm worried she'll destroy my growing connection with Kathy. I'm thinking of obtaining a divorce. The only reason I didn't file for divorce back then was that I didn't want my children to have to pick between their mother and father. Now I'm contemplating if I should go forward with it and prioritize myself over everyone else, including my children. Should I wait a few years for my children to grow up before making a move? I'm not sure Kathy will wait for me till then. Oh, I'm still upset with Lisa over her decision to open the marriage. I'm also upset with myself for agreeing with her and not pushing back enough. Edit. Apologies for all of the jargon and missing facts, particularly on Lisa's adultery and our separation dynamics. People say it's tough to give counsel without clarity, so here it is. It'll be long, so skip it if you don't want to learn about the past. This was roughly 10 years ago, so I may have missed a few specifics. Lisa began acting up 4 months after our younger kid was born. She wouldn't let me get close and said she wasn't ready for sex. Pregnancy and breastfeeding had made her wary of closeness. I supported her decision, but we were slipping apart emotionally. I recommended we go to couples therapy, but she dismissed it, saying it was simply her postpartum phase and she'd recover shortly. It took almost a year before I lost patience and addressed her, stating that we needed to address the elephant in the room. She either attended therapy with me or gave me the truth about what was wrong. She gaslighted me, accusing me of being insensitive and other nonsense, but I refused to let it go this time and probed for the truth. I snooped through her phone but found nothing definite because she had deleted the majority of the chats and emails. I'm not sure how I got the clue, but one day she mentioned she was going shopping with her pals. I followed her automobile and discovered her infidelity. She was sleeping with a young college student. I knocked rather than barged into his residence. Lisa was on the couch in her lingerie, trying to cover herself, when a shirtless guy responded. I grabbed the guy by the neck and was ready to strike him when Lisa interfered, pleading with me to leave him alone. She cried, saying it wasn't his fault. He was only one of the guys she was hooking up with. It blew my mind. What the heck, one of the guys? She admitted to hooking up with several guys. The guy standing in front of me had no idea what was going on, or that she was married with children. We returned home, and I did everything any man in my position would do. No, I don't hit. I'm not a violent man. I contacted her parents and confessed the facts in front of everyone. I insisted on the divorce. I even engaged a lawyer and discussed the case, but as things went, The lawyer revealed the truth, which shook me. There was no genuine benefit for me, only loss. Because the kids were so young, they'd require their mother. At most, I could gain joint custody, but Lisa would have to allow me to meet with them and dictate the terms. Yes, I could take her to court if she didn't follow the court order. But how often does a regular man want to become engaged in legal battles? We live in a no-fault state, so there is no moral policing for her. I still have to pay alimony, and child support is required. So basically, I handle all of the tasks of a father, but I rely on Lisa to spend time with my children. Lisa, on the other hand, was opposed divorce. She proposed that rather than divorcing, we open our marriage and return to each other whenever we wanted. I knew I never wanted her back, but divorce was too expensive at the time. The only practical choice was to separate and live as housemates and co-parents with our children. So, we did it. Though she calls it an open marriage or whatever she wants, I consider it a failed strategy, and we have parted. Lisa has been with several partners over the last 10 years. Though she claims she had no significant relationships with any of them, I believe she had at least 3 sexual partners. They visited our house, and she went trekking and on vacation with them. It was difficult for me to see her bringing different guys into our home, first her adultery, then her multiple partners in our bedroom. We own a duplex house. I move the guest bedroom upstairs. The stairs leading to it are accessible through the back door. We bought the property from an Asian couple who built it so their grown-up son could live upstairs in peace. Unfortunately, the son moved out, and the couple sold it to us since it was too big for them. The main entry to the house leads into a living room with a large closed kitchen, a dining area, a master bedroom, and a pantry that we converted into our children's room. Upstairs, there is a guest room the same size as the master bedroom, and the rest of the space is dedicated to a huge library area for reading and hosting parties. That space leads to the roof of the home, which has a little patio. Since I was moved upstairs, I could see much of what was going on downstairs. I hoped I could close my eyes, but for my children's sake, I remained attentive. I initially joined the dating scene, but after a few months, it felt hollow and useless. I discontinued it and concentrated on other important matters. I joined a badminton club to improve my athletic body. I had been a sports fan in college, so I returned to playing field games on weekends. I also joined a hiking club that plans solo hikes every 2 months. You cannot bring a friend, spouse, or someone you know. You hike alone, and there are others who do as well. It was tremendous fun. I did that for 2 years straight and now only do it twice a year. I've had a few hookups over the last 10 years, but no emotional affairs or long-term relationships. I didn't feel connected to anyone else. Kathy's situation is different. I feel good around her. She's the woman I believe I can give love another chance with. But now, Lisa, the devil of my life, has returned to hunt me down. The scenario remains the same. Kathy refuses to come to my apartment. I'm concerned she'll withdraw herself from me, and I don't want to lose her. The scenario forces me to choose between Kathy and my children, and I'm having difficulty making a decision. Update 1. Hello everyone. Thank you for all your suggestions and remarks. I appreciate everything, good and terrible. I sought therapy, which greatly aided me in determining my focus point and what I want out of life at this time. As several of you mentioned, the children are nearing their teen years, so it will only be a matter of a few years before they leave to lead their own lives. It makes no sense to pass up my chance to be happy with Kathy. I had an open discussion with Kathy. I told her about my feelings. I told her I wanted to be with her, and if she felt the same way we could work things out. She claims she feels the same way but is hesitant due to my family dynamics. She simply does not feel comfortable around my legal wife. She is fine with the youngsters surrounding me, however. I said I could figure this out. I'm going to move out and the kids can choose where they want to live. They are mature enough to make that choice, and they can alternate between mom and dad's. Kathy agreed with the plan. My therapist proposed counseling for the children, in which they might be informed of our marital status in an age-appropriate way. Lisa flipped out when I informed her about the counseling. She stated I was being selfish and damaging our children's life by getting serious with Kathy, and that I should put my family first over my own selfish goals. I lost my cool at that. I asked, "Really, Lisa? Are you the one advocating family values and morality? What happened to your ethics while you were getting knocked up by various men when your children were still breastfeeding and rolling in their cribs?" I asked her to back off and brought the children to the counselor. It was useful. The children responded well and appreciated that we had banded together for their cause. They also agreed that I deserved to be happy for the rest of my life. I informed Lisa that I would be filing for divorce. She pretended to be surprised and began sobbing. She stated, "I thought we decided never to divorce and to be together throughout. Now that you have found this woman, you are leaving your family to be with her. I've also met a lot of men who wanted to marry me, but I never gave up my married life for them." I responded, "Stop trying to guilt trip me. This is not helping. Cut the bullshit and sign the paperwork. I'll be paying for the children's education until college and you can retain the house and the car. This will be your alimony. I will be moving out. I am prioritizing my pleasure over money because I can now afford it. Back then I couldn't." She cried and tried everything she could to convince me to get divorced. She stated I could move out and live with Kathy while still married to her. I said, "I adore Kathy and do not want her to be dubbed my mistress. I know no one calls her that, but you would. You can go to any length to humiliate others. The paperwork should arrive any day soon. I'm moving in with Kathy next month. I am waiting for my children's annual tests to be completed. I'll be taking them on a trip and then moving out. I'll feel relieved when everything is settled." Update 2. I'm telling you, this woman is a true piece of work. As I said in my previous report, I was on holiday with the children. This woman seized the opportunity to carry out her nasty scheme. Lisa wept her way to Kathy, telling her to back off. She informed her that she was breaking up our family and that our children would suffer as a result. Lisa attempted to guilt Kathy, but when Kathy refused, Lisa said that I wasn't serious about her and that she was simply a fling for me. Lisa is a cunning, ruthless woman. She knows precisely how to play her cards. She knew I was in a low network zone with the kids, so she promised not to call me, and she didn't. If Kathy had been any other woman, she would have freaked out at the fling phrase. But she remained calm and waited for my return. She had my hotel number but did not bother me. That's what I admire about her. She's a confident woman despite my complicated situation. When I arrived home and learned of Lisa's spiteful move, I marched up to her door and yelled at her. I should have done this sooner to get the garbage out of her mind. Her entitled behavior has gone too far, and no one will tolerate it any longer. I have moved out of my house. My children have also decided to stay with me, but we do not have a spare room, therefore I'm looking for a larger property to accommodate them. Until then, kids are remaining with their mother. When I was moving out, Lisa performed a variety of tantrums, ranging from guilt-tripping to ranting, gaslighting to sobbing and pleading for another opportunity. She asked me to give our relationship one more chance. I told her that our relationship had ended 10 years ago. We were only housemates and co-parents. The truth is, I've moved on from loving her. She is nothing to me. I love Kathy and want to spend the rest of my life with her. When Lisa received the divorce papers, she tore them up. My lawyer had to issue her a letter threatening to sue her for destroying a legal document. Only then did she calm down and consent to sign them. The divorce proceedings are ongoing. I haven't followed up on my soon-to-be ex-wife since then. I went to pick up my children twice but did not enter the home. Yes, several of you inquired about my children's ages. They are now 11 and 13, mature enough to understand the divorce and separation. Update 3. I am pleased to inform you that my soon-to-be ex-wife, STBX, is now officially my ex-wife. The main point of this update is that the divorce is finalized and my children have moved in with me. They will visit their mother every 2 weeks or whenever they wish. The last month has been hectic, renting a house and relocating belongings. We didn't tell Lisa about the kids moving in with me until I rented a new house. We all knew she'd be upset, so we decided to wait as long as possible before telling her. The kids advised packing their bags and sneaking off with me when Lisa wasn't looking, but I chose to handle things legally. I did not want to get into another argument with that woman. According to our divorce agreement, we must give each other 3 days' notice if we intend to take the children for more than 2 days. So I returned home and informed Lisa that the children wanted to live with me and that I would pick them up in 3 days. As expected, she freaked out. Fortunately for us, she did not become violent, breaking things and all, which would have made things easier for us. Instead, she took the emotional way. She held the children, cried, apologized for everything, and begged them not to leave her. She did her best to emotionally manipulate them into staying with her. She was even successful with the younger child, who stated that he wanted to stay with Mama. Kathy had warned me that circumstances like these may occur, so I was expecting a last-minute change of heart. When my younger kid called, I told him, "Cool, Dad loves you no matter what." But my oldest son was strong in his choice to move out, so I answered, "Sure, I'll pick you up. I'm not sure what happened in the meantime, but when I went to pick him up, both boys were prepared with their luggage. I hugged both of them and led them away. I didn't inquire as to what had occurred. It was already upsetting enough for them, and I didn't want to further the situation. Kathy and I are attempting to make them feel at ease in our new home. We're involving them in the process of setting up their rooms, ensuring that everything matches their preferences. I expected Lisa to make one more effort to stop the children from leaving the house, but she had already given up. She simply sat there, crying and screaming. She hugged the boys firmly, apologized for her actions, and assured them that she loved them. She stated they were welcome to return to Mama's whenever they pleased. Before I departed, she asked if I had time for coffee. Her appeal sounded innocent and sincere, so I accepted. Her tone conveyed regret and she apologized. This time it did not sound false. She confessed, "I was delusional all along, thinking you would never leave me. When Kathy entered your life, I did not see her as a threat. I assumed she was simply one of those flings that will die out in a month. I believe I took you for granted because of the safety you gave for me and the kids, despite everything I did to you. I didn't realize I was mean and narcissistic until it was too late." I simply smiled and hid my emotions. I rose up to leave and she approached to hug me. I hugged her back. This was our first hug in 10 years. I can't really absorb how I felt about it, and I can't describe how I feel today following our final talk. I'm not pleased or sad, just numb. That's how it is. My life has changed dramatically during the previous 6 to 7 months. I suppose it will take time for me to process everything. Thank you all for your help, you've been the best. If anything changes from here, I may update the thread. Fiancé banned me from my dad's wedding because of my facial scars. Now she's harassing us and got arrested after we called the cops. I am 16 years old, female, and am attending high school. I've had a horrible run recently with my soon-to-be stepmother. My biological mother died when I was 6 years old. Even though I was very little and my recollections of her are foggy, I recall that my father and I adored her more than anything in the world. She was pretty much my best friend when I was a kid and I'm grateful that I got to be her daughter for the brief time she was with us. My father was terribly melancholy when my mother died. Even though he tried to disguise it from me, I could tell he was in pain. So I tried my best to cheer him up and be a good daughter. My mother's death drew us closer together, and my father assumed the role of best friend and confidant that my mother had previously occupied. He took on the duties of mother and father with ease, and I am grateful to have had him as a parent. He has never let me down. He was always there for me as I grew up, and even when he was busy at work, I never felt like I couldn't ask him for guidance or simply talk. He always made it clear to me that he was accessible for me, no matter how busy he appeared to be, and this stuck with me. My father began dating Emily 3 years ago, and I was overjoyed for him. I thought he deserved all the happiness in the world, and I was relieved he was finally getting on with his life. I wasn't insecure, as some kids would have been in my situation. I truly supported his relationship with Emily because I wanted him to be able to enjoy his life to the best. He had done an excellent job being there for me after my mother died, and now I wanted him to be there for himself. Most of my family was surprised to learn that, at the age of 13, I had such adult thoughts, and they liked it. But for some reason, Emily seemed to be the only person who disliked me. Even though I had no issues with her, Emily's attitude toward me altered the first time we met. She had been nice to me while my father was in the room, but as soon as he left, I felt something change. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I can see that her demeanor toward me turned uncaring when my father was not present. When he returned, she was friendly again. I thought that was strange, but at 13, I assumed I was just overthinking things. This pattern persisted for several years. I never spoke up because I didn't consider it a big problem. When my father was not present, all she did was act apathetic, which was not necessarily terrible but also not good. My father appeared happy, so I didn't say anything. After a year of dating my father, she moved in with us and things changed dramatically. She moved in with us after a year of dating my father, and it felt strange living with her. She worked from home, and as soon as I returned from school, things became unpleasant and tense. Despite the fact that we shared a home, it felt as if she was purposefully ignoring me, pretending I wasn't there. She limited her interactions with me to a minimum, but as soon as my father arrived from work, she transformed into a completely different person, behaving like my best friend. I thought it was unusual, but because it had no detrimental effect on my life, I just went along with it and never brought it up again. We had an unwritten agreement not to bring it up for the sake of my father's happiness. I quickly understood that she and I were not close and would never be. which I was perfectly happy with. That's how we spent the previous few years living together. And my father had no idea we didn't really have a relationship. He thought we were close because of how she described our connection while he was present. They got engaged a few months ago and planned to marry last week. However, the wedding did not take place, and I feel somewhat sorry about this. Emily approached me around 30 minutes before the wedding and informed me that she did not want me to attend. She claimed I appeared too distracting, and would detract from the beauty of the event. Emily said that she had hired experienced photographers and didn't want me to damage the images, thinking I would understand. I was meant to be a bridesmaid, but she simply appointed me to please my father. I knew she didn't want me to be a member of the bridal party, but I consented since it would please my father. I also knew why she didn't want me to attend the ceremony. A dog had attacked my face a few months before. It was a tragic situation, but I was responsible for it. I have a habit of caressing dogs, so when I noticed a woman walking her German Shepherd, I crouched to pet him. I must have startled him, because he attacked me. My nose and cheeks received the brunt of it because they were at the same level as his mouth. I had to be hurried to the hospital, and while it was traumatic, I am well today. My face still has a few surgical scars, but they are mending. I'm not sure if they'll ever go away completely, but they're fading gradually. I had a difficult time accepting the notion that these scars would remain on my face for a long time. I was quite insecure, but my father convinced me that I looked great, and the scars were a sign of strength. His encouragement helped me accept my new appearance. Most people have been supportive and attempted to make me feel better, but Emily was not among them. While I knew she was superficial, I didn't anticipate her to intentionally make me feel horrible about myself. I was really hurt when she informed me that she did not want me at the ceremony. I questioned her right immediately if this was related to the scars on my face. She didn't even hesitate to tell me that she thought my face was distracting and hideous. She didn't want that in her wedding photos 10 years from now since it was unattractive and would mar the photos. As a result, she asked me to move out and requested I not tell my father about it since he would be angry at her, which was the last thing she needed on her wedding day. She explained that she was already anxious from organizing everything and ensuring that everything went smoothly and correctly. She honestly expected me to leave and not attend my own father's wedding because she thought I wasn't attractive enough. She was so entitled and inconsiderate that I resolved to finally tell my father everything that day. I didn't care if it was his wedding day. It was evident to me at that point that Emily was not the type of person who belonged with my father. However, I did not want to confront her directly, so I told her I understood and vowed to remain away from the ceremony. I also assured her that I would find an explanation to explain my absence to my father without getting her in trouble. She was naive enough to fall for it and even thanked me, saying I was doing her a tremendous service and that she hadn't expected me to be so understanding about everything. She claimed I was really mature for my age. I simply laughed it off and exited the room. We were all staying in a hotel because the wedding was taking place on the hotel grounds. After leaving her room, I returned on my own and quickly contacted my father. He was already downstairs, where the wedding was scheduled to take place, and I did not want to waste time looking for him. Even though the wedding was only half an hour away, I knew I was the only person whose call he would answer. As expected, he responded on the first ring. I instantly began my story, telling him everything without halting. I recounted how Emily had treated me over the last few years, how she pretended to be in a relationship with me solely to keep him happy, and how she clearly didn't care about me or being a member of a family. I told him that even if he went forward with the wedding, I needed to give him the truth before he made a decision. He did not say much during the call. All he said was that he was glad I told him the truth, even if it was only minutes before the wedding. He said he understood what he had to do and hung up, telling me to wait in my room until he told me to come out. For the following several hours, I had no idea what was going on. People were contacting me to ask what was going on and why the wedding was delayed, but they stopped after about an hour. Everything became silent. I tried calling my father, but it went to voicemail. I also called some of his pals, who indicated they had no idea what was going on either. Apparently, after my phone conversation, my father went up to Emily's room to speak with her and did not return. The only thing he told his buddies was that the wedding was no longer happening, and that was the message they spread to everyone, so people stopped inquiring about it. I was quite scared because I thought my father would be upset with me for ruining his wedding. I cried in my room for over 4 hours before he arrived to collect me. When I asked him what was going on, he said I didn't need to worry because we were going home. Naturally, I inquired about Emily, and he informed me that she would not be accompanying us and that their relationship had ended. He said it without emotion, so I'm not sure if he was upset about it at the time. Even now I have no idea because he refuses to discuss it. I'm guessing he's upset, but he's not ready to talk about it with me. I'm guessing he's plainly upset but refuses to discuss it so I don't feel guilty. However, it is not working because I'm not feeling well, as Emily has confirmed. She's been speaking negatively about me and I can't believe a woman her age could say such things about a 16-year-old who was only trying to protect her father. Emily has made multiple Facebook postings, but she does not mention me by name, so I can't really point them out and claim they're about me. But I know they are, since she paints me as a crafty and evil person. It's incredibly upsetting because I don't believe I'm like that at all. She claims that I purposefully chose the last few minutes before the wedding to speak with my father in order to embarrass and disrespect her in front of the guests, alleging that this was always my intention. This could not be further from the truth. The only reason I spoke with my father was because she stated that she did not want me at the wedding because of my scars. She's also claimed that I was the one who faked our relationship and never made an honest effort to connect with her on a human level. There may be some truth to that. When I saw she wasn't the same person around my father as she was with me, I gave up trying to understand or get along with her. I simply ignored her in return. But I assumed that was because she showed no desire in developing a connection with me. I can tell she's unhappy, and I feel responsible for ruining the entire wedding. Even though I know I have no reason to feel bad, I am unsure about what I did. A part of me believes I owe both Emily and my father an apology. Maybe I should have spoken up sooner. Keeping everything to myself until the wedding made everything worse, but I'm also worried I'm behaving out of emotion. I wanted to be sure I wasn't in the wrong before doing anything. Am I the asshole, AITA, for informing my father about my stepmother's behavior half an hour before the wedding, leading it to be cancelled because she made a comment about my scars and stated that she did not want me at the ceremony for the purpose of flawless pictures? Update 1. Thank you so much for your comments on my initial post. I appreciate what everyone has said. You are all so kind. I have determined that I will not apologize. After what has transpired, I genuinely do not believe I should, and I certainly do not owe anything to Emily. Everything she accuses me of is precisely who she is in reality. My father has blocked her everywhere, so she can no longer reach him. However, she can still text me, which she did. She contacted me a few days ago and went off on me about what had happened prior to the wedding. It has been over 15 days since the wedding, and this occurred around 4 days ago. It began with a routine text in which she requested if we could speak. I figured, why not, while I was still feeling responsible and bad for spoiling the wedding. That proved to be a terrible error. As soon as I informed her she could call, she called me, and when I answered, she and several of her friends began yelling at me, calling me the most awful insults they could think of. This lasted for almost a minute and a half. I was so shocked that I couldn't grasp what was going on. This was a woman in her 30s, and I understand why she didn't like me, but this was literal bullying, and I wasn't expecting it after all her posts. I suppose I should have known better and avoided interacting with her at all, but my guilt clouded my judgment. Anyway, once I came to my senses, I hung up the phone and went straight to my father. I informed him about the Facebook posts and phone call. I also apologized for keeping it from him, explaining that I didn't want to make him any more angry than he was already. Attempting to keep things from getting worse simply made matters worse. We had a serious discussion about my behavior, and he informed me that I could come to him with whatever difficulty I was having, whenever I needed his assistance, because that's what he was here for. He emphasized that he is here to protect me and that he, not I, is the parent, therefore I do not need to worry about protecting him from anything. He also informed me that I am the most important person in his life, and nothing will ever change that, so I didn't have to worry about trivial matters like him being unhappy about something so significant. He stated he was glad I came clean just in time so he didn't marry Emily, because things may have turned out a lot worse. That encounter taught me that I should quit second-guessing myself and, at the very least, be honest with my father. If anything, he is the one guy who can always get me out of trouble, and I need to be honest with him for both of our sakes. Following our chat, he decided to phone Emily and express his displeasure with how she had handled me. He wasn't aware of the post because he and his buddies had blocked her, so they had no idea what she was up to. I was the only one who remained on her friend list, most likely because she wanted me to hear all she was saying, knowing how it would affect me. I had blindly fallen for it all, without considering the repercussions. I was disappointed in myself for being so naive, but my father saw it positively. He assured me I wasn't an idiot, but 16, and that's what I'm going to use to justify all of my poor actions around this time, heh. Anyway, he called Emily, and this time, it was my father who put her on blast. He texted her to see if she was available to chat, and when she answered yes, he called her and confronted her for bullying me with her friends. He warned her that if she harassed me again, she would suffer severe penalties and threatened to report her to the cops. Then he hung up without giving her an opportunity to explain, because she couldn't truly defend her conduct. Update 2. This post comes barely a day after my last one since Emily came to our house this morning to speak with my father, and it did not go well. I'm not sure why, but she still believes she can repair her relationship with my father and reconcile with him, despite what she did to me. Obviously, my father did not open the door when she arrived. He advised her to leave because he had nothing to say and did not want to hear from her. But she refused to leave until she had a chance to speak with him. When I told her she wasn't welcome anymore, she yelled at me, telling me I had nothing to do with anything and should stay out of it. She claimed I was pushing my nose where it did not belong. This time I was not going to back down. This was my house, and she was in my territory now. I yelled back, warning her that if she tried to ruin our weekend, we'd call the cops and have her taken off the property. Unfortunately for her, she did not take me seriously and continued to argue with me, as if this would get her anywhere with my father. She's so unreasonable that she came to reconcile with my father but ended up creating a fight with me, something she knew my father would not enjoy. It was evident that defeating me was more important to her than reuniting with my father, which was heartbreaking. My father actually cared for her, and here she was making a spectacle of herself by arguing with his teenage daughter for no apparent reason other than her irrational hatred of me. After battling with her for a long time, I knew I couldn't continue. She was too illogical and unreasonable to talk to, and it was so frustrating that I couldn't even argue with her properly. She kept blaming me for everything, despite the fact that she was the one who canceled the wedding. I was growing annoyed and didn't want to quarrel anymore, so my father and I simply stopped replying to her. We called the police to have her taken away since we didn't want to waste any more of our mourning on her. She continued screaming after that, but it made no difference to us because we had finished talking to her. When the cops eventually arrived, they arrested her and took her away. I don't think it'll be more than a slap on the wrist for her, but at least she learned her lesson, which I hope will stick. She was truly startled that we had contacted the police, since she had not expected it. It was clear on her face when we walked out of the house as she was being arrested. At some point, she realized we no longer cared about her and began yelling at me even louder than before, which was a daring move given the cops were close there. She was practically demonstrating herself to be insane. She completely lost control and began yelling at me, which shocked even the officers. That's one of the reasons my father filed charges against her, even if it wasn't our original intention. But with her cursing at me, it couldn't be ignored. Her behavior was insane and sad, and I'm relieved she's gone. I sincerely hope she doesn't return because we don't need this in our lives. My father and I have dealt with enough drama to last a lifetime in the last 2 weeks, and we are finally done. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been about 3 months since the wedding was cancelled. My father and I agreed to take a trip to clear our minds. I'm on summer break right now, and we went hiking, something my mother used to enjoy. I enjoy being in nature as well, so this is ideal for both of us. We've had a terrific time, and I'm grateful that my father and I are actively working to improve our connection. This ensures that past misconceptions do not occur again. At the end of the day, we are all we have, and he is the only family I can rely on. I need to be honest with him and tell him vital things instead of worrying that something will upset him or trying to protect him from things he doesn't need to be protected from. We haven't heard from Emily in a long time, and I truly hope that continues. I know hate is a strong term, but I don't think it describes how I feel about her. According to what I know, after being jailed, she was released but continued to speak negatively about me and my father. I honestly don't care anymore because that's the type of person she is, and we're relieved to be rid of her. It does not matter. Caught my pregnant wife on camera cuddling with a coworker. Now I'm questioning everything, including paternity. My wife, 38F, and I, 39M, have been together for 12 years. I don't know how to characterize it other than as the perfect connection. In 12 years, I believe we've only raised our voices at each other perhaps 2 or 3 times. We do everything together, but we've never had a problem letting each other live our own lives and pursue our own interests. We bought a house where we wanted, and we both had fantastic high-paying jobs with excellent work-life balance. Basically, it's been everything but perfect. We've been trying to become pregnant for 2 years and haven't been successful. We were preparing to begin fertility treatments when I returned home from a business trip, and guess what? She was pregnant. I got this strange notion. Wait, I thought we didn't try during the week last month because of fertility testing. But I couldn't remember exactly since we were so busy. So I assumed I had misremembered. Now, I frequently travel across the country for work. Other than during COVID, I've been on the road for up to 40 weeks per year. Since COVID, it has been reduced, but still more than a week every month for the past 4 to 5 years. My wife has become quite friendly with the guy she works with. Let us call him Matt. Matt is slightly younger, around 34 million. I know him. He is married, and I know his wife. They've been working together for around 7 years. He's always been around, and we've been friendly. Have I ever suspected something was going on? No. But I've always thought you'd be a fool to believe there's no chance your partner may leave the relationship. Maybe I'm naive, but I've always considered it as a safety not to take my wife, or any previous companion, for granted. She has never given me cause to believe she would do that, but anything is conceivable. I was out of state for work about a month ago, while she remained at home. I asked her what she had been doing earlier in the day and she replied Matt was coming over for supper. This wasn't unusual. Matt stops by on occasion. Sometimes with his wife, sometimes alone, and occasionally when I'm not around. I didn't think much about it. We installed a security system with cameras inside and outside the house following an unrelated event a few years back. The cameras record footage, which she and I can view live. I frequently use those cameras to check on the dog while I, or both of us are away, because the rest of the system is monitored by a business in case an alert goes out. She knows I check those cams. There's even an installed system that allows me to communicate with them. If any of us is out of town, I'll play pranks on them, and she will do the same. She travels for work, although far less than I do. The point is, it's known that I check them frequently when I'm not at home. So I switch on the camera and see my 4-month pregnant wife sleeping on her side on the floor, with Matt sitting on her leg and massaging her hips with a foam roller. Okay, what the __ is this? I begin rewinding through the footage and they are eating and talking regularly. But then they get on the couch and share the same blanket. They are now feet to feet, but that couch isn't that huge. Then they move to the floor, and I logged in. Anyway, I text her while I'm still monitoring the cameras. They both appear like deer in headlights, and he swiftly departs. We get into an argument. She isn't angry with me for accusing her, but she is adamant that nothing happened, or ever will happen, and that what I witnessed was innocent. She complained about being in agony from the pregnancy, which I know is real. She is already experiencing back pain and other symptoms. The most significant moment of the conversation was when I questioned her, if I were there, would you two have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? She hesitantly said, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk after that, but we'd discuss it when I returned home in 3 days. That's when it occurred to me. What if my strange gut feeling about her telling me she was finally pregnant was related to this? What if my 1% chance came true and we did not have this child? It's now eating away at me while I spend 3 days alone in a motel 1,000 miles away. I resolved with myself that I believe it is less likely than more likely that something between them occurred, but my 1% has now increased to 10%, 20%, or possibly more. When I arrive home, she's walking on eggshells and doesn't say it. I wait to see what she will do. 2 days later, she finally brings it up and collapses. She claims nothing happened and that she would never cheat. She doesn't go beyond to prove her innocence, which I viewed as a positive sign. Anyway, we resolve the issue and continue forward, at least for the time being. I'm still coping and figuring out how to trust her after all this time. I'm gradually realizing that they've been pals for a long time. Maybe he has intentions, but I don't think she does. I've spent a lot of time with both of them and have never noticed anything wrong. What is destroying me right now is the concept that if I am wrong and something happens, I will be able to deal with it. What if the child is not mine? I've never mentioned it in our disputes or the few lengthy discussions we've had about the problem, and she hasn't either. Mostly because I don't want to further the situation by crushing her, especially if she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only option I can think of at this point is to wait until the baby is delivered and then order a paternity test in secret. Should I do this? Should I tell her and deal with the situation now? If you were a woman in her circumstances and told the truth, would it ruin you or your opinion of me? If I asked you if you were lying, how would you respond? I don't want to ask such a vague question, but what should I do? Mini update. There are a lot of comments. Thank you everyone. More than I can handle directly, but I'll continue reading. Some have made valid comments about tackling it now rather than later, which I am contemplating more than previously. Thank you to those that concentrated solely on my relationship. I understand, but that is not my main focus right now. We've been discussing it a lot. My wife and I are fairly open with each other. I'm not saying I believe nothing happened, but I'm more concerned with paternity right now. If I need to track or spy on my wife using Life 360, then this relationship is gone. That is not the connection we have, nor is it one that I want or believe anyone should have. We are working to rebuild trust. As I said in this lengthy essay, my 1% suspicion increased to 10% or so. Trust me, I take my relationship seriously, but if the child isn't mine, there's no use in continuing the talk. I have previously addressed this with my lawyer. I don't live in a state where the birth certificate issue would be a problem. If I have documentation proving the child is not mine, divorce will be less of an issue. We are both in independent financial situations, so it will not matter much. I'll keep updating this page as long as possible and offer an update when and if anything is fixed. Update 1, May 10, 2024. She was out of the state on a work trip until late last night. It is Friday, and she is working from home in our kitchen today. I asked to speak and brought it up, requesting a paternity test. She quickly responded yes, without hesitation. She stated unequivocally that she has no reason to be concerned. She has no trouble taking the test right now. The one condition I left was that if it is at all intrusive, according to our doctors, I am fine with waiting till it is low risk. I'm not a doctor, and I have no idea what they'd have to do to test now, so we'll see. But she is aware, and we are receiving one. It was a decent and lengthy talk. We're currently sitting together for lunch. She has no idea I did this on here, therefore the new account because she is on here somewhere. Thanks to everybody for your assistance and opinions. A lot of you reminded me that we are already very open about everything, and if nothing happened, she wouldn't be concerned about getting a test. I was more concerned about her health and adding an absurd level of stress if there was a problem, given she is in a high-risk pregnancy and it has taken us so long to become pregnant. So again, thank you for your assistance. I suppose I could update whether the child is mine or not, but I'm not sure how long it will take. I am 90 to 95% certain the baby is mine, but this will help us continue the conversation. Update 2. Because it appears to be a more relevant topic in this post than in the other, I do have the film. No, I have not spoken to Matt yet. He's informed her he wants to discuss it, but I've ordered them to wait. My relationship with my wife, as well as the paternity test, are currently the most important things. I will ultimately speak with Matt. No, I am not going to purposefully entangle Matt's wife. I don't see why I would, except to be vindictive. I won't cover for him, of course, but his relationship is his, and mine is mine. I'm not interested in making things worse. Whatever happens between him and his wife is none of my business. We've had a lengthy discussion about why my wife believed she could be intimate with someone else. Nothing is being neglected. I could write an essay about our history, her motivations, and my thoughts about it, but instead I'll simply state that I'm aware of it. She denies any more wrongdoing, but concedes it was not a good appearance. She was not thinking about it at the moment, and that is what we are currently dealing with. When asked if it appeared harmless and if my wife visited Matt's house when his wife was not present, I said that she was 4 months pregnant and I was at home. We've been so busy with work that the days have blended together. Trust me, we are quite open people who are at ease with themselves and one other. I'm not sure if she's been to his place without his wife. I mean, the 3 or 4 of us maybe only hang around once or twice a month, but they work directly together every day and have for years. So, obviously there is some closeness there. They are both in senior executive positions at their organization. I too have long-term female friends with whom I have traveled, had dinner, and hung out in hotel rooms, but I have never crossed any lines since it is not who I am. I'm married, and I adore my wife and life. I see no reason to do anything inappropriate. So yeah, the optics are awful, but I need to determine whether it's just lousy optics or anything else. Matt may have motives, but I'm not sure. That's the thing I need to figure out, if I trust her to handle it. She claims she has never been aware of Matt's intentions. She spends almost the same amount of time with him and his wife as he does with us. She works in a building nearby, while I reside on the coast while my company is headquartered in Chicago, so my coworker buddies are considerably more dispersed. We can't simply grab after-work beverages as others can. Because of this, I frequently attend her work hangouts rather than my own. I'm also acquainted with her CEO, so while it's not ideal, I've always trusted her. I've never had a reason not to, until now. This is the first fracture or ding in our 15-year-old trust. To clarify what happened that day, my wife said something to Matt, who froze. He murmured something I didn't hear and she added, "No, don't worry about it." He put something in the dishwasher and she let him out the front door. He did not jump out the window or anything. I'm not going to include every single nuance or detail in this post because it would take hours to write, and I'm not uploading security tape for strangers to see. I installed the security system after an event involving a stranger on the internet. I'm not suggesting nothing transpired between them, rather I'm not sure. That is what my wife and I talk about practically every day, and what we are going through. The original point of this post was that we had not discussed paternity. I didn't want to place her in a situation where she would lose the child, whether mine or not. Not only was I unable to describe every delicate detail, but I also included incorrect details about our life that had nothing to do with what happened. I used to be a minor public figure and some internet troll came across the country to threaten us with death. It grew to the point where the federal government had to intervene. People here are jumping to conclusions with far less knowledge than I do, and they are ignoring the original premise of the post and the questions I posed. Some inquired if I had informed Matt's wife. No, I have not. She is my wife's friend, but we don't spend much time together. I know her through my wife and I only see her every few months, at a bar after work or when they come over for dinner or to hang out. We are not best buddies. Should I actually go tell her, hey, your husband was at my place? I knew he was there because I observed him apply a foam roller to my wife's hips while sitting on her feet. It's pretty apparent there, and I'm not sure, but she might be carrying his baby. This is not a soap opera. I have nothing to tell her, so why would she believe me based on the scant facts I have? And why or how does that help my situation? If all of this is incorrect, then I've ruined my relationship by acting like a child and inciting drama for what appears to be vindictive reasons. Plus, I would place them in the same scenario as we are now, for something I don't even know is true. I believe you have completely lost the plot here. Update 3, August 21st, 2024. Hello everyone, here's your next update. I also included this in the recent update. This is where we are at. Yes, my wife is still extremely pregnant. She is at the hard to pick things up off the floor stage. She's due in 8 weeks, but it's actually 6 weeks. I simply looked at the calendar. We are currently having weekly ultrasounds. The youngster already weighs approximately 5 pounds and has a large head. Her and I had very lengthy, direct chats about everything. She is convinced that nothing has ever happened and never will. For a long time, she was furious with herself for triggering this and my doubts. I've done my best to correct this, because I need to keep the stress off her as much as possible right now. But it will definitely be reviewed after the birth. As I've stated throughout, my only concern is the child and the successful birth. Okay, mostly. Perhaps not only asterisk. The only thing we still disagree on is that I believe he was getting too close because he had developed feelings or was receiving attention that he wasn't getting elsewhere. She doesn't see it that way, but she has admitted that it is feasible, even if she was unaware of it. When I told her I wanted a paternity test, she readily consented, stating it was no problem at all. My only caveat was that it not be medically risky or stressful, as she is in a high-risk pregnancy. We both discussed it with our doctors, and they basically told us that our only option was to go to court since they wouldn't do one without the law involved, which we both thought was crazy. Her doctor was confused by it, so I didn't press too hard. To be honest, she pretty much demanded the test. I knew there were other alternatives, and I researched them, but I ultimately decided to wait until the birth. I already have a lab set up and ready for the test. I'm 95% confident it's unneeded, but I'm getting one for my own peace of mind and, most importantly, to ensure that nothing comes between me and my child. Thank you to everyone who has sent me supportive messages that I have not responded to. I'm going to go through them tonight before I leave again. For those of you who believe I should be acting like a 17-year-old high school student, either by being aggressive or purposefully cheating on my wife to illustrate a point, or implying other childish behavior, thank you for the entertainment. Stop watching TLC or TikTok. That idiotic drama isn't the way to go, kids. And to the one individual who recommended I provoke an accident with my wife, I hope you wind yourself in prison someday. It's quite unlikely that I'll return here after tonight, at least until I receive the test findings. If you're still interested in the results, check back in 1.5 to 2 months. I've been advised that the findings take roughly 48 hours after submission. I'll give you your moment then. My wife left me for her rich lover, but when he lost it all, she came crawling back asking for a second chance. I am 32 years old, and I have been married to my wife, who is 27, for over 6 years. We've been together for 8 years and 3 months and have lived together for 7 years. In my opinion, everything was always excellent. I felt like we were the ideal relationship. We both have decent careers, secure money, and purchased a home 5 years ago. In February 2022, I tragically lost my mother to a heart attack. The months that followed were extremely difficult for both myself and my wife, who was close to my mother. By harsh, I mean truly rough. We hardly went out twice throughout that time, spending most nights at home relaxing on the couch and watching TV. I wasn't happy, but I assumed we'd get through it. Then D-Day arrived 5 weeks ago. My wife went out drinking with 3 male coworkers, only 5 minutes away from our house. I was okay with it, thinking, cool, but I'm going to bed soon. Around 3:30 a.m., she arrived home with those 3 guys. I knew them all. She then informed me that she was going out with them to the city. I disliked it, but I couldn't stop her. Everything closes at 4 a.m., yet despite the 15-minute travel home, she didn't arrive until 5:30. That was when my suspicions began, despite the fact that I had never mistrusted her before. 4 weeks ago she departed for an entire Sunday, claiming she was going to a carnival with her mother. I didn't trust it but had no idea what to do. She even left without saying goodbye while I was showering. She arrived home later that day, weeping. My initial answer was, "Honey, come here. What happened? What's made you so upset?" Her first words were, "I want a divorce." Following that, we had an emotional conversation. I asked her straight up whether she had cheated and she answered no. She told me she was unhappy for a long time and wanted a divorce. She had never informed me anything was wrong with our relationship, so this really surprised me. After our conversation, she left and moved in with her mother. 4 days later, I met her again since we have a puppy that neither of us can care for on our own, especially at her mother's house, so the dog is currently staying with an aunt. When we met again, I confronted her about infidelity. This time she admitted it. She said that she had cheated on me from the night she went drinking until a week later, when she left home. She stated that she believed she was in love with him. When I asked her what she liked best about him, she simply answered, "We have a good connection, a spark." That was it, I suppose. She also stated that she was experiencing a midlife crisis and was unsure about her life goals. In my perspective, she's going insane. She unexpectedly colored her hair purple and joined up for motorbike training. I attempted to reconcile with her during the first week or 2 of her departure, but she refused to budge. Every significant message I sent her was ignored. She did respond to light ones, but her responses were brief and arrogant. I really don't recognize my wife anymore. Her personality appeared to transform in just 1 week. She treats me as if I never existed in her life, as if I were a piece of junk. Is this a protective strategy to make things easier for her by pushing her issues into the future? Has she truly changed and feels this way now? How on earth is that possible? I mean, I get that falling in love is a fantastic experience, but what will happen to her after a few months when the honeymoon period with this guy is gone and she wakes up from it all? I've had a lot of conflicting sentiments. I resent her for cheating on me, and I'm incredibly disappointed. But I also see and understand that the foundation of our marriage has always been strong. 5 weeks have passed since D-Day. She still hasn't filed for divorce and neither have I. I'm not sure, but I believe she's still seeing the person she cheated on me with. To be honest, I am split between saving our marriage and ending it. Right now, I don't care if we get back together or divorce. I honestly do not know what to do. If I file for divorce now, I might regret it later for being too quick, but I also can't keep living in this state of limbo, still legally married, but she's already gone. Edit. For the first 4 days after she departed, I was unsure if she had cheated on me or not. Those were the toughest days because I felt so horrible and as if I had messed up everything. But as she admitted to cheating, those sentiments began to vanish. Even if I share responsibility for some aspects of our divorce, it is entirely her fault. She never showed me she was unhappy. She appeared pleased, as if she could have been an actress. She never mentioned being dissatisfied or what needed to change. To top it all off, she has cheated and continues to do so. This is finished. I no longer feel there is a way out of this. Also, I don't miss her right now. Sure, I miss who we were as a couple, but who is she now? Honestly, I almost feel sorry for the next guy whose heart she's bound to shatter. To be honest, I'm doing really well after my mother died. Of course, I had other issues at the time, but I was finally getting out of the funk and climbing back up. I wanted to go outside, drink, have fun, ride my motorcycle, etc., but then she cheated and kicked me back into the ravine. It will be all right in time, but I have to say that I am not looking forward to the holidays. No mother, no wife, and my father is alone after 40 years of marriage. But we will deal with it. Life carries on. Fortunately, I have a wonderful sister and a close circle of friends who I have known for over 20 years. I'm not ready to return to single life, but I am also a little excited. I haven't dated in almost 8 years, and I haven't gone out without first checking in with my partner. Of course, I fell as deeply as possible this year, but I'm confident that there will be better days ahead. One of the Redditors was completely correct about us marrying too young. When we married, I was 26 and she was 21. I haven't changed much in those years, but it's possible that she has changed much and has hidden those feelings for quite some time. Note, she stated that she is experiencing a midlife crisis, Those are her words, not mine. To go deeper into our common interests, hobbies, characteristics, and so on, I merely indicated in the post that we lived a stable life. I didn't go into depth since I didn't believe it would matter very much, and the post is already pretty lengthy. But here we go, hobbies and interests. We both enjoy gaming, although we have never played together. I'm now playing Age of Empires 4 on my PC, while she prefers to play The Witcher on her PlayStation 4. We both enjoyed watching a good Netflix show, especially after my mother died. We did it frequently, but even before that, we preferred staying in together to watch a nice movie rather than going out drinking. We would occasionally go to the movies or play pool, maybe once or twice a month. We also went out to dinner. We both liked motorcycles. I had a license and a bike, whereas she didn't. She always enjoyed sitting in the back seat of the bike as a passenger. When she was younger, her father would take her for rides on his bike. Apparently, she wants her own license and bike, something I was unaware of. Family time. We both enjoyed spending time with our family. We'd usually spend every other Sunday at her mother's house, with her stepfather, her father's house, with her stepmother, or my father's house. We enjoyed driving to nature sites and forests, as well as going for walks with our dogs. Personality traits. I enjoyed how spontaneous she could be. Well, she appears to be too impetuous, but that's okay. I sometimes overthink things, such as whether we should buy something, whether we actually enjoy it, how much money we have at the time, and so on. She would simply buy it or book the vacation I was apprehensive about. I admire that about her. I realize we were diametrically opposed in this regard. I adored her sense of humor. We had, or have, an incredible connection when it comes to humor. We had the exact same dry, goofy sense of humor and always had a good time together. I always admired her honesty and straightforwardness, until things went wrong. She was continuously telling me how she felt, what she liked and disliked. For example, approximately 4 years ago I became addicted to a video game. At the time I had no idea what I was doing wrong, but after a few weeks, she told me I wasn't making her happy and that I needed to pay more attention to our relationship, which I did. I kept gaming to a bare minimum. Bro, I enjoyed the way she spoke, walked and laughed. I adored her appearance. She had a beautiful grin. I even liked how she usually sneezes 8 to 10 times in a row. But as of right now, all of those sentiments I had, or have, are quickly dissipating. As for our sex life, I'll make it brief. We didn't have much sex. Since we got married, I'd guess it's been twice a month on average. In my opinion, it was always fantastic, though I'm not sure about hers anymore. Thinking back, we both always climaxed, unless she faked it, which I doubt. The sex act wasn't that thrilling. We always performed the same 3 or 4 positions and that was it. Update 1. Okay, I made several calls yesterday. In the Netherlands, we have something called a mediator, who handles all elements of divorce. This mediator handles the lawyer's work, including financial and emotional discussions. It's like an all-in-one individual assisting 2 people with their divorce. Today, we spoke with this mediator. Unfortunately, my soon-to-be ex's car broke down, and I had to pick her up. For yes, I had to for this to work for the divorce to be finalized. It is critical that both of us attend the meetings with the mediator. Anyway, the talk went well, as predicted. We both indicated our desire to be divorced, but the adultery was never acknowledged. I didn't think it was worth stating that the mediator is neutral and does not take sides. Also, in the Netherlands, there are no rules against cheating, thus she has the same rights as if she hadn't cheated. We remained seated at the table after the mediator had left, barely speaking. Our cats roaming about were the only diversion. After a few minutes, I inquired if she had anything further to say and she said, no. I thus said, okay then, I think you can go now because I don't want you here. She asked, can you take me home? I declined, saying, how you get home is your own problem. I'm not in the mood to drive 30 minutes to get you home. She looked emotional. I believe she expected me to drive her home because, in the past, I had done everything for her. After that, she called her mother, who will pick her up in about an hour. She left the house stating, I'm going for a walk for about an hour until mom arrives to pick me up. She seemed hurt and emotional as she departed, but I'm staying strong. I still notice a lot of unusual behavior on her part, and I believe she is still in the affair fog. Despite everything, I still love her for who she was, but for the time being, I'm staying tough and treating her as if she meant nothing to me. Edit. As of right now, she means nothing to me. She is just no longer the woman I loved and remained faithful to. Query. I have a query that requires some context. For the past 11 years, I have worked as a driver for a transportation firm called Supertrans. I resigned that job 4 months ago and got a new one with another transportation firm. Around 1.5 years ago, I secured my soon-to-be ex a job at Supertrans. She worked in the office, and I was the driver. I also know her affair partner, AP, who works in the warehouse at Supertrans. Because I worked there for 11 years, I know everyone in the Supertrans office. Everyone liked me, and I was close friends with some of the dispatchers. As far as I know, my old co-workers, her present co-workers, are aware that we are divorcing, but no one is aware that she is, or has been, having an affair with AP, a warehouse employee. Her direct co-worker, who works at the desk next to her, is a 32-year-old gay man who was also present on the night my wife cheated. I will call him Thomas. However, he left early that night. Thomas was one of my favorite persons at their office, and he also liked me a lot. My soon-to-be ex is currently on vacation and will return to work next Monday. I know Thomas likes me and wants the best for me. I'm seriously considering sending Thomas a message explaining what occurred and revealing the affair to him. Of course, I'd like to warn him that my wife has no morals and cannot be trusted. I mean, Thomas has to work with her on a daily basis. I want him to understand what kind of person my soon-to-be ex is. I also plan to inform him who the AP is because Thomas was with them the night she cheated. I want Thomas to understand how morally bankrupt the AP is, and I understand that this may appear to be a desire for vengeance. I suppose I do. This woman has put me through hell. I mentioned a few weeks ago that I would love to hear about her having a bad day at work next Monday since her co-workers knew she deceived me and had an affair. Really, everyone liked me. I've known the majority of her staff for more than 10 years. Furthermore, I have the option of telling or not telling anyone about her adultery. Okay, so this isn't the question I intended to ask. Should I do this? But I believe I've already made up my mind. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it and why you think I should or should not. Update 2. You've all been a tremendous assistance in my predicament. I must admit that I am mentally exhausted, but overall, I am doing better than I could have expected after only 6 weeks. I have a question regarding my soon-to-be ex-wife's current behavior. Is it common for my soon-to-be ex to treat everyone around her as trash, except her AP and her own parents, I suppose? She is clearly treating me horribly, with no respect, as if I were the worst spouse ever. She claims she's been miserable for several years, which I think is pure nonsense. Anyway, I don't really care what she's doing to me anymore. She's wrecking her life, not mine, but it's having an impact on others as well. My father gave her the sweetest note he'd ever given. And she didn't even respond with a thank you, nothing. After my mother died in February of last year, my wife would often take my father to a nearby amusement park. They both have subscriptions to it, so they go very frequently. My father adored her, and I am witnessing him age by the hour, which saddens me deeply. My soon-to-be ex-wife does not even send a thank you note. She simply leaves him to read. She also stated that she wanted to be close friends with my younger sister, but they have not spoken in several weeks. Also, my wife was meant to spend the day with her best friend, a common friend of ours, but she is now ignoring her. Her best friend texted her numerous times yesterday, wondering whether today was still on, but my wife did not respond or even check her texts. She also didn't answer the phone. So today, when they were meant to meet, the same thing happened. She didn't answer the phone. Her BFF sent her one more message, wondering whether she was still coming. No response. She didn't even read the messages, even though her WhatsApp status reveals she was online after they were sent. Needless to say, her best friend has been crying all day. She took the day off to spend with my wife, go shopping, and have fun, and then this happened. Is this typical behavior for someone in an affair fog, or might it be something else? I don't care what my wife is doing. I'm done with her, but this is so awful for her best friend. She's been crying on her couch all day because my wife treats her this way. While I'm composing this, another question comes to mind, but I believe I already have the answer. My soon-to-be ex-wife is telling everyone we broke up because we grew apart and she hasn't been happy in years. I believe it is typical for a cheater to make excuses and not be open about what happened and how they fell in love with someone else. Oh, I almost forgot something really crucial. Her BFF, a common buddy, really stayed with us for 6 months, from November 2021 to April 2022. She had recently gotten out of a nasty relationship and had no place to stay. We had an extra room, so we brought her in. Anyway, my wife and her best friend actually discussed everything, including our relationship and sex life. Everything. I talk to her best friend every day and she's been extremely lovely and completely honest with me. I asked her whether anything my wife had said about being unhappy with me for an extended length of time was genuine. BFF claims it's all lies. My wife has never mentioned anything to her, nor has she expressed any displeasure with me. Keep in mind that they told each other everything except their feelings of unhappiness. So either my soon-to-be ex-wife is clearly lying now, I'm not sure why, possibly to explain her cheating on me and fleeing our marriage, or she has kept her unpleasant feelings hidden from absolutely everyone but herself. I honestly do not know. But in my experience, I've never noticed her being dissatisfied with me, and BFF agrees. Many thanks again, everyone. Your help has been invaluable, and I would not be where I am today without it. Edit, I honestly hope karma hits her hard, sooner rather than later. Also, when people ask me why we're getting divorced, I tell them the truth about her being a selfish cheater. Just yesterday, a female acquaintance shared my communications from my wife and her. The discussion went like this. "Oh my God, honey, is it true you and your husband are separated?" My wife said, "Yes, sadly, this is the truth." The companion inquired, "Oh my God, no, what happened?" My wife responded, "Yeah, well, we just grew apart over the last few years and have different life goals. We chose to terminate it." Needless to say, I corrected this and told our friend the truth, that my wife cheated on me, pretended to be in love and abandoned me for another man. Everyone who learns the truth from me is shocked. By the way, no one, including myself, expected my wife to do this. Update 3. I plan to make a new post in a few weeks. For now, I'm fine. When I realized she was out there living her life without me, I began doing the same. I spoke with my soon-to-be ex-wife several times, and the conclusion seemed to be that she still loved me, but it wasn't fun anymore, which is not surprising given my mother's unexpected death in February. She claims to be in love with the AP, but without any strings attached. I never saw her being dissatisfied with me, and she even stated that she was unhappy with life in general. So what I believe happened was that she cheated, developed affections for AP and abandoned me for him. Once that was evident, I decided to let her go and focus on myself. At this point, I don't care what she's doing or if she'll return. I am fine either way. Work is going well. I've joined a gym and have been going 3 times a week. My muscles are hurting, and I've been talking to this lovely girl since childhood. Even though it's only friendship, I'm grateful to have a female friend with whom I can chat about anything. She lost her father last year, so we can all empathize with losing a parent. So sure, I'm fine. Regarding the divorce, we had to acquire a large number of documents, which were then forwarded to the mediator. We are currently waiting to hear from him before scheduling our next meeting and moving forward with the divorce. As of right now, I've already decided that the divorce will proceed, regardless of whether my soon-to-be ex-wife returns. Divorce is inevitable since the marriage has ended. Update 4. We'll sign our divorce papers and make it official in 4 days. This is going to be a long post because I haven't updated in nearly 4 months. Well, I made some blunders along the way, but I also made movements that restored my power and made me respect myself again. For starters, 5 months after the first shock, I no longer think about or feel affected by the adultery. So, for everyone going through a difficult period, please believe me, it will get better, and time is on your side. After adultery and our breakup, I committed blunders. I begged, pleaded, became angry, furious, and felt completely out of control, as if she had lost her mind. This persisted for around 2 months. Unfortunately, after this period, I decided to stop whining. I told her that I had given it a lot of thought and that I would still be open to seeing her and talking to her, that I believed there might be a future for us, but that I couldn't guarantee anything. I have not contacted her in the last 3 months, at least not about casual matters or the relationship. The only things I inquired about were our upcoming divorce, finances, and our shared house. I didn't just sit and wait for the past 3 months. I am now 32 years old, and for the first time in my life, I went to the gym to work out, muscle building specifically, as I have always been on the slim side. For the past 3 months I've been going to the gym 4 times a week with complete dedication. I'm also seeing an improvement in my muscles and appearance. However, this goes beyond. The gym not only improves my physical look, but it also benefits my mental health. At first I started working out to keep myself occupied and distracted, but 3 months later, I look and feel much better about myself. I'm rediscovering confidence that I didn't realize I had. Pro tip of the day. When you're going through a difficult moment, the gym seems to help both physically and mentally. Regarding our shared house, I spoke with the bank, and I'm able to lend more money and take on a larger mortgage. I have to pay my ex-wife approximately $65K for the house, but I am able and will do so. After signing everything and paying her, I will be the only owner of the mutual house, which is worth approximately $300,000. I'm not happy about having to pay her $65K, but in the long term, I'm far better off owning my own home, which is worth roughly 5 times that amount. Furthermore, she no longer has her own home. She officially lives with her mother again, but I know she frequently visits AP's place. I'm not contacting her, so how do I know? I will get to that. My ex and I share a mutual buddy. We never hang out together, but we do communicate on a regular basis. As far as I know, my ex left me to be with AP and immediately began a new relationship. I'm not sure what's going on with my ex, and at times it appears she's lost her mind. I try to keep my thoughts away from her, but occasionally they travel where they shouldn't. At the moment, I think I could refer to AP as BF because that's what he is now. However, I will stick with AP because that is how it began. Anyway, concerning AP and my ex-wife, karma is a B********, and it's beginning to bite hard. When my ex and AP first got together 5 months ago, everything appeared fine for them. However, the tables are starting to turn. AP is currently at home suffering from depression, which I know since a common acquaintance showed me screenshots of a chat between my ex-wife and her. Additionally, AP is currently out of work. Even when the infidelity initially occurred, I always felt superior to AP due to his lack of morality. And I had already concluded that he was worthless in comparison to me. Well, now I know for certain, which makes me feel like my ex-wife has gone insane. I'm not conceited, but I am certain that I am the catch and a far superior man than her AP. A little extra. At the beginning of their relationship, I was still contacting and warning her. Well, I think I was correct all along. Not only does AP prove himself to be the loser I suspected he was, but he also introduces her to a substance that has the potential to destroy her life. I discovered this through a mutual buddy. I haven't spoken with my ex-wife about it. If she wants to trash her own life, that is her choice, but it appears to be going bad quickly. My ex-wife is undoubtedly struggling and may even be questioning her own decisions. I hadn't spoken or seen her over the holidays, Christmas and New Year's. However, around a week into the new year, 2023, she texted me unexpectedly, asking if I was home and if she could come over. She came over to my house and the visit lasted only about 5 minutes. She stopped by to tell me she had spent Christmas Day alone, sobbing. She inquired about my holidays and how I was doing. I informed her that my Christmas was okay, but not the best. I lost my mother last year, and these were the first holidays without her, so it was decent but not amazing. However, I told her I was doing well, which I am. So for me, this was strange. The only thing I can think about from this entire visit and why she would be concerned about how I'm doing is whether she has any regrets. Time will tell. I also chatted with my ex's mother. My ex-mother-in-law called after New Year's to wish me a happy new year and best wishes. I must admit that I did not expect the call, but it was great to hear from her because she had been a part of our family for the past 8 years. My mother-in-law told me that my ex-wife hasn't been doing so well lately. Apparently, she is quite sad and crying a lot since she is mourning her marriage. My ex even told her mother, "I wish it wouldn't have to be like this," implying that she is having second thoughts. However, only my ex has the ability to reach out and make a move, which I do not anticipate happening at this time. The only authority I truly have is to grant her the divorce she requested and then walk away from her life, which I did. I am separating myself from her life, divorcing her, and improving myself every day. I apologize for the lengthy message, but I believe this covers all I needed to say. We will sign the divorce papers 4 days from now. Even though I'm doing well, I'm still human, and I still mourn our marriage and my ex-wife on occasion. I'm sorry to see what's happened to her, but I'm also aware that it's beyond my control and not my concern. Let me conclude by thanking everyone in this community. Many thanks. Without your assistance, I would not be where I am today, both emotionally and physically. I gave my sister-in-law a pregnancy book, unknowingly exposing her affair with my husband's friend. Now the family's in chaos. We know each other since our husbands, Charlie, 26M, sister-in-law Cheryl, 28F, and I, 26F, attended high school together. Charlie and I were in the same year and are sweethearts from high school. We began dating our sophomore year and have been together ever since. With Cheryl, things have always been different. She's always despised me, hence I would want to say we were high school nemesis as the sentiment was reciprocal. She was a senior 2 years older than us, yet that didn't stop her from being absolutely rude to me. She was a vicious bully in high school, and regrettably, not much has changed since then. Only I could stand up to her back in high school. Everyone else was terrified since Cheryl and her buddies were infamous for mistreating anyone they came across. Some people even moved schools because of their terrible deeds or spreading of tales. They were that horrible. I am not exaggerating. I never feared her, even before Charlie and I began dating. I had always been acquainted with her brother. Cheryl didn't seem like this undefeatable entity to me, as he and I had been great friends and I often stayed out at his house. She seemed like any other child. That's how everyone ought to have seen her, in my opinion, but high school can be weird. Still, I wasn't scared of Cheryl. Once I started dating Charlie, I became even more bold. She probably felt powerless over me, even as a senior, and this disturbed her. She once did something truly terrible to me. As usual, one morning upon opening my locker, dead fish and a lot of fish water dropped on me. Head to toe I was covered in nasty, sticky slime. I had to go home since I was so offended, and it was embarrassing and demoralizing. Though I couldn't prove Cheryl was behind it, I felt it had to be her. We had a severe verbal argument in the cafeteria the day before. I labeled her a brain-dead zombie in front of her friends, some of whom even laughed. She did this to me since she couldn't let that go. Charlie felt it had to be his sister too, and their argument turned out really intense. He managed to convince her to back off, even though he cannot get her to apologize to me. Though Charlie and I have been together for years, Cheryl and I never spoke once that incident occurred. But once Charlie and I got married last year, my in-laws informed Cheryl and me that since we were now family, we had to try more to get along. Some nosy relatives had been questioning our lack of communication or simply glancing at each other during family events, which embarrassed them. Having gone far from high school, I was ready to let the past pass. I agreed to be polite. Cheryl and I shook hands like grown-ups. Though we chose to be friendly at family functions rather than avoid one another, we were not going to be best friends overnight. Things appeared to be going good a year ago. We would say hi and then go on whenever we ran across each other. We had left the bad blood behind us, so I assumed, but then she became cruel once more. She showed up empty-handed on my birthday some few months earlier, which was okay. She then told me she was actually teaching me cooking classes and emailed me an online program she had bought at the party itself while I was opening everyone's gifts. She said it was meant to be a joke, but nobody else laughed and I didn't either. For background, I had done all the cooking for the day alone, hence it was quite nasty. I have always loved working in the kitchen and experimenting, even though I am not a professional chef. Since childhood, cooking has been a pastime of mine. Her comment, she was going to give me cooking lessons, was quite nasty, right after she had eaten a whole dinner I had made. As Charlie had pointed out, everyone knew I produced everything. I took it to heart since I had worked hard and woke up at 6:30 a.m. to make sure everything was perfect. No one truly laughed even once she explained it as a joke. She persisted even though several people laughed merely to let her drop it. She kept insisting she was kidding, but she really thought I should have culinary classes since everything she had eaten that day made her feel sick, and she kept saying she might throw up at any time. She also made jokes on how everyone should clear the path to the bathroom should she have to barf. She was truly approaching my last nerve at the end of the evening, and I felt relief when she left. She didn't even bother bidding farewell after spending the whole day cracking jokes at the expense of my cooking abilities, which, by the way, aren't particularly horrible. Charlie and everyone else told me the food was fantastic, hence I have no idea what she was talking about. To be honest, I had begun to believe she might be a decent human being, but after my birthday I chose to resume neglect of her. She obviously still lived in her high school mean girl form, and someone like her had no right to be friendly with me. Cheryl had her birthday last week. She had to invite me even if we are not getting along since I asked her to my party. Charlie traveling without me would have been strange, hence she invited me in order to maintain family peace. That proved to be rather a blunder. I chose to let her taste her own medication. Based on a few weeks old overheard talk, I handed her the book What to Expect When You're Expecting. For background, Cheryl came up to our place 3 weeks ago. She insisted on talking to Charlie in private and appeared depressed. She didn't realize I was standing immediately outside listening in on their conversation. I left the room to let them chat in the living room. Though I knew it wasn't moral, I was intrigued and wanted to listen in so Charlie could cover for me when she left. Cheryl was pregnant, per what I understood, but she was truly concerned as she felt unprepared to be pregnant. She had come to consult her brother. Charlie advised her to talk to her spouse even if she felt unprepared. Given that the pregnancy was early, they may discuss ending it should she still feel unprepared. He reasoned that chatting to her husband could allow her to relax and take better control of the circumstances. Cheryl left after briefly consoling her. I told Charlie what I had overheard as she left. We both agreed she had been behaving oddly. She appeared strange coming to us instead of her husband even if she wasn't ready for a baby. She said some things that nearly sounded like she needed Charlie's assistance in covertly ending the pregnancy, but he wasn't ready to engage in such dishonest behavior. He thought her husband ought to know before any decisions were taken. Though ultimately the woman's decision is hers, we felt her spouse at least deserved to be included in the conversation given she was married. We had not heard anything else regarding her pregnancy since that day. Still, I decided to pull a small practical joke on her and handed her that book. Fortunately, she did not unwrap the gifts in front of every visitor at the party, yet it made no difference since the book truly got her into trouble. Her husband might thus eventually find himself leaving her. She called me in tears the day after her birthday, stating I had destroyed her life and charged me with purposefully undermining her marriage. What she was talking about eluded me. She was so enraged and was screaming at me, so I couldn't even get her to clarify what was happening. She hung up silently, done, without further word. Following that phone chat, my in-laws got in touch and reported exactly what had happened. She apparently had been unwrapping all of her gifts with her husband, and then that book surfaced. I had even left a note stating that Charlie and I wished to congratulate her and affixed it to the book. She hadn't told anyone yet about the pregnancy, but I wanted to play about with her the way she had done on my birthday. I had no clue it would have such dire results. She could not have become pregnant by her spouse since he was sterile. This was unknown to her. She apparently may have been cheating now, and her spouse had already shown suspicion. That book served to validate his misgivings. Though none of the family members know for sure whether she had been cheating or not, let's be honest, she most certainly wasn't biologically incapable of having children. In any case, that is not my line of work. All I know is she had come to Charlie thinking he would assist her covertly in ending the pregnancy. Now we know why she wanted to keep it a secret and why she was so queasy when she spoke with him. She cannot let that happen if she wanted to end the pregnancy without her husband knowing, since she is a homemaker and everything she spends might be followed by him. Even pulling money would be suspect, as it would be a large sum that would beg problems. Cheryl made a great effort to persuade her husband that I was merely teasing and that nothing was happening. He disagreed when she claimed the book was only a hoax. Unless there was some truth to it, he doubted Charlie and I would pull such a joke. He then requested Cheryl to leave, and today she lives with her parents. My in-laws asked me to talk to her husband and persuade him that I had only handed her the book to play about with. Given his suspicions of her adultery, they believed I might get him to approach her and fix things. Her fidelity now begged additional questions. I disagree, since they think I should not have done what I did and that I'm at blame. For the past week, my in-laws and I have been at conflict. Given her behavior at my birthday celebration, I believe I was justified in what I did. I don't think I should accept the fall for this, as I had no idea it would cause so much trouble. She most certainly should have been faithful to her husband if she wanted peace in her marriage. To hold me responsible for it is unfair. Charlie has the same sentiment. Though he believes the present was a little excessive given the events of my birthday celebration, he does not advise me to apologize to Cheryl or even talk to her husband about any of this. Saying we should resolve things since her marriage is in jeopardy, my in-laws keep fighting with us. They believe that should we fail to persuade her spouse that this was only a joke, the family may suffer from divorce. She most certainly was cheating, though, if she was pregnant when she spoke with Charlie and her husband is sterile. Should that be the case, we want no involvement whatsoever or defense of her. Apart from that, the book was only vengeance for the jokes she cracked at my birthday. I had no clue it would result in anything like this. I have nothing to be guilty over. It is not like I did it on intention. Still, they all seem to be behaving as though I'm the villain, the mastermind behind a sinister scheme meant to wipe her off target or otherwise. It's very strange. Suddenly I'm questioning my choices. AITA kindly sent a pregnancy book as a birthday present to my sister-in-law. Update 1, Hi. So it's been 2 weeks since I handed Cheryl that book, and up until now we have avoided talking to her husband. From what we know, she had been cheating on her husband with another man, hence going forward we will also keep to that. Though I'm not sure specifically, I believe it's someone from high school. Worse, I believe it's someone from Charlie's acquaintance group, since a few days ago we spoke, more of an argument, on the phone with Cheryl. She stated it was quite unjust that she was being held accountable for all of this, but Charlie's friend was equally culpable. However, he wasn't getting any criticism and was even unwilling to defend her. Though we don't know exactly who she's referring to, Charlie has quite a few married pals from high school. That's not really our main concern. Managing my in-laws has proved somewhat challenging. I don't believe they have done it yet. They insist I should chat to her spouse before he files for divorce. He keeps telling he'll do it, but if he truly wants to split, he should have done it now. What he is waiting for is unknown to me. Anyway, they believe they still have time and that, if I only talk to him, I could be able to persuade him not to leave her by stating I was only doing a practical joke. I have nothing to do with all of this drama, Hence I refuse to allow myself to get caught in it. Though they have been making it somewhat challenging for us, I simply want to back off and relax. Thus, yesterday we had to make a really difficult choice and ultimately block all three of them since they were slightly disturbing us. We can't keep talking to them, trying to help them to grasp where we are coming from. Over 2 weeks have passed. She was truly a bully to me in high school, yet many of the people in the comments on my first post felt it was unacceptable of me to do what I did. She had been cheating, hence I doubt I have to feel guilty about what I did. Still, folks are free to disagree with me in this free nation. Update 2. Hi. 3 days have passed since our last report and at last we were able to identify the person she had been having the affair with. Charlie's friend she mentioned turned out to be among his closest pals. This surprised me somewhat a bit. Because his family was acting somewhat irrationally, Charlie had been complaining to his pals about how challenging things had been for him the past 2 weeks. I suppose his pal chose to come clean as he couldn't tolerate it anymore. He called Charlie and told him he had been seeing Cheryl in an affair. Apparently, all of this began roughly 1 year ago, just around our wedding's time. For us, it was really startling and we are still trying to understand it. Charlie is quite close to every one of his buddies, hence we never expected a betrayal like this. From what we have seen, this guy, who has been married for 3 years, and his wife seem to be truly in love. I personally know the woman. She talks endlessly about her husband. Right now, I just feel somewhat sorry for her. We decided straight away to cut him off, and right now we are not telling anyone since we do not want to discredit him. But we will most certainly not be entertaining this going forward. We even told him to tell his wife straightforward since she is the one who really needs to know the truth. Nobody should ever have to go through what this is like. He also supplied us with evidence of Cheryl cheating on her spouse alongside him. We have come to the conclusion that, at least nothing good would come of it if we allowed ourselves to be pulled into this play. Hence, our last call is keeping them blocked. To what we know, they have not discussed this with anyone else. Everyone still believes we get along well with my in-laws and that Charlie's relatives know nothing about the turmoil underway behind the scene. Given the circumstances, which would be somewhat embarrassing for the family, I'm betting they are keeping things under wraps in order to protect their name. Though I suppose it's a surface motivation, I value their great concern for their perceived image. We don't want to deal with other people right now and it's helping us keep everything secret. As it is, we have sufficient on our plates. Charlie's cousin is getting married in a few weeks, hence they will have to go to that wedding. We're not sure whether my in-laws or Cheryl will be there given the present circumstances, but if they decide to go, boy, that will be quite strange for everyone concerned. Update 3. Hey, practically 2 months after my last update is here. Not truly intriguing events occurred in these previous 2 months. We sort of forgot about my in-laws once we cut them off. Their end also lacked news, hence they did not try to get in touch with us. We thought perhaps Cheryl and her husband had been able to sort things out as neither a pregnancy announcement nor a divorce announcement was made. Good for them, then I suppose. Charlie and I know that adultery never stays secret, thus we really don't care about what's happening in their marriage. When her husband finds out the truth, she will most certainly receive what she deserves. Regarding the pregnancy, I suppose she stopped it some way. In any case, we didn't bother ourselves with it and kept to our own business as whatever happened is not of importance to us. That was till we visited his family at his cousin's wedding some few days ago. Including Cheryl's spouse and my in-laws, all of them were present. Once we arrived, we acted as though the others did not exist and neglected even greeting each other. Clearly, the rest of the family noticed it right away. People began posing all kinds of inquiries to us. Though they attempted to be subdued about it, we knew they were gathering gossip. But we simply tried to keep to ourselves so nobody would disturb us. We did not entertain anyone. Cheryl, on the other hand, followed a different strategy. She chose to blab her mouth off even though we knew the facts. We were ready to put up with her since we were 3 days at the hotel and it was just a matter of time till we returned home. But she began to say such terrible things about us that we had to confront her about it. Sadly, that resulted in a somewhat public confrontation between our families during the rehearsal dinner. It was someone else's wedding, hence I regret it as Charlie and his cousin got along well. Now one of the events was totally destroyed thanks to us. Naturally, following such a spectacle, we had to leave before the wedding even started since we couldn't stay much longer. We have since apologized multiple times to his cousin. She has indicated she is cool with it, but we still feel quite horrible about what happened. Cheryl and my in-laws, on the other hand, were really in charge of generating all of this turmoil, yet they hardly bothered to apologize to Charlie's cousin. At least we departed of our own will. The other family members practically urged them to go after we departed. Serves them right, they were due this kind of shame. It was pretty fulfilling for both of us when Charlie's cousin told him about it the day before her wedding as we were phoning her apologies. Cheryl had been telling all the family, and everyone who would listen, that we had tried to destroy her marriage by lying about her adultery, therefore leading us to a fight in the first place. She said we failed in trying to undermine her marriage. Clearly, that was untrue since, as we indicated, her marriage life is not something we give much thought to. Choosing to live with a lady like her husband had shown how dumb he was. We were even ready to let that slip since we were attending someone else's wedding and we wanted to avoid starting a scene. She then began asserting, though, that we were the ones having an open marriage and that I wanted to get close to her husband, which explained why I'd always been so envious of her. We couldn't live with that. We resolved to face her then. I mentioned all the evidence, the screenshots we had gotten from Charlie's friend, which I had been saving to myself for so long on the evening of the rehearsal dinner. Charlie and I now felt, nonetheless, that it was at last time to defend ourselves. She could not simply say anything she pleased and get away with it. Her husband can no longer ignore reality since he at last knows it. His call is whether or not he takes the correct decision for himself and leaves her. At least now there will be no more questioning of us. At least we left on our own with courtesy, avoiding being thrown out as others were. Though we are now attempting to move over it, it was just a really awful few days. The whole family knows Cheryl's type of person she is. Thus I just feel sympathy for her husband as he decided to mend things with her even though it was useless. I truly hope he gets the bravery to escape. Should he decide to remain with her, then he just has absolutely no decency or self-respect. We eventually decided to go ahead and sabotage her marriage as she had been accusing us of for so long. She will now have to pay for trying to bully us. How she planned to get away with all of this is unknown. Since high school, Charlie and I have literally been standing up to Mom. I believe we have made it really evident that we are not scared of her. We were not thus going to back down either right now. She ought to have known that. Update 4. Consequently, it is happening. 2 weeks have passed since our return from Charlie's cousin's wedding, and today I at last heard from a couple of cousins Cheryl wrote about her and her husband divorcing. She said that it was a mutual decision to split ways and urged everyone to honor their privacy during this trying period. What a weight of lies this baggage carries. She's behaving as people weren't present at the wedding and like her entire family isn't aware of what actually happened and the real reason they're divorcing, hence I'm not sure why she's acting like we all already know, hence we will definitely be honoring her privacy. No one has to ask her what happened. The talk began when Charlie told some of his pals, thus even her friends have learned about it. We regret nothing about what we did. She had been spewing so much garbage about us in the past that we hardly need to feel guilty about what we did or regret her. Should she go low, we will go lower as well. Period is. She has always been a bully, thus we believe we did the correct thing as someone needed her down a peg. We are happy to be the ones doing that. If that makes some people view us as the bad guys, that is okay with us. For example, my in-laws have chosen to totally cut us off from their life. They even had their attorney get in touch with Charlie to let him know they had opted to avoid us and most likely would cut us off from the inheritance as well. As like we were going to learn that and start begging for pardon right away. That is not going to transpire. We are not money-based sellouts that one could purchase. Besides, since Cheryl hasn't worked since she graduated and has been depending on either her parents or her husband, they should most likely retain all their money to themselves, presumably for the rest of their lifetime. Thus, yes, they may keep their money and Cheryl with herself by all means. We behaved what we believed to be right. We are not going to act as though we are sorry for it. Right now, Charlie and I are quite happy with our life. We have no interest in anyone else. Proposed to my girlfriend of 4 years, she said no because it wasn't a surprise. Now I'm wondering if we're on the same page about marriage. Original post. I'll start by saying I love my girlfriend a lot but she is definitely high maintenance. We've been talking about getting married for a couple of years now but I wanted to wait until I knew a wedding was something we could afford. I finally got a promotion and she found stable employment so I went out and bought a ring. We went on a vacation last week. The whole trip was very romantic, and I proposed to her on the beach which I thought she would have wanted. Turns out she expected it all along because the trip was so romantic and she said no. She wants me to try again but wants it to be a surprise this time. She also wants a photographer to be there to capture the moment. It was pretty fucking embarrassing when a few people came up to us to congratulate us and she was explaining why she said no. I'm not sure what to do. She wanted it to be a surprise but also wanted me to propose as soon as I felt ready to. We also talked about her ideal engagement and it's on a beach, yes, seriously, in a forest or in a field. I can't imagine any possible scenario where I could surprise her at one of those locations. She is not the outdoorsy type so it'd be unlikely she would be in any of those locations anyways. I explained my frustration to her and she just said, "Well, if you want to get married, you will find a way to make it work." It seems so bratty and immature, and I'm not sure how to deal with her now. I'm still really pissed off about it. What should I do about this? Am I wrong to be pissed off? TL.ER, proposed to my girlfriend, but she said no because it wasn't a surprise and there wasn't a photographer there to capture the moment. Only wants to get engaged if the proposal fits a very specific image she has. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Your girlfriend doesn't sound nearly mature enough to get married. Take this as a sign of your life to come and get out. OOP. I think you're right. I had been trying to justify it for her, but judging by the overwhelming response, I should probably break it off. Comment 2. Ask your good friends their truthful opinion on her, and make sure to let them know that they won't get a backlash for saying something bad. They know better than us. OOP. My friends can't stand her. Comment 3. Take the ring back to the jeweler. Does she want an engagement or does she want a marriage? I can totally see bridezilla growing on her already. Yikes. OOP. Yeah, that's another thing. When we were talking about her dream proposal, she was showing me her Pinterest for her dream wedding, and it's full of stuff we won't ever be able to afford. I told her it's unlikely our wedding would be like that, but we could still make it nice, and she said she'd rather wait till we can afford her dream wedding. Comment 4. And by rather wait, I suspect she means nag you about either getting a better job or taking out a loan to pay for what she wants. Don't do this to yourself, man. OOP. Yeah, she told me I could start selling some of the furniture I make, which is something I do as a hobby that she wants me to turn into a second job. Update. Here's a link to my last post, but it got deleted. To summarize, I proposed to my GF on a nice vacation and she rejected it because she knew it was coming and there wasn't a photographer. Thank you all for your comments and messages. Sorry I couldn't respond to most, but I read them all. I decided to try and talk about it with her one last time before throwing in the towel. I wasn't really expecting much, but I just wanted to see if she'd see my side. She lives with me, so I wanted to end things on a good note. She didn't understand at all. She was still saying I needed to work for it and she wasn't taking me seriously, so I broke up with her. Then she told me she accepts my proposal and we're just going through a rough patch, but we will work it out. She was really trying to get me to change my mind and was promising me she would be better to me. She completely ignored me every time I told her we're breaking up and was always yelling over me about how we were going to work things out now that we're engaged, and eventually I just got tired and went to sleep, thinking it was perfectly clear that it was over. I woke up Saturday to a whole bunch of messages. She found the ring and took a pic with it announcing our engagement and tagged me in it on Facebook. We got into another huge fight and eventually I just called her parents and told them to come pick up all her shit or it's going to the dump as soon as she leaves. They were surprisingly understanding. Her dad seemed really embarrassed by her, but they were a huge help. I know it's illegal to do that and I was supposed to actually evict her, but she got seriously violent and I didn't want her in my house anymore. She smashed my iPad and knocked my PlayStation off the TV stand and both are completely broken, so I didn't want to wait around and see what else she would do. She wouldn't even give me the ring back. Her dad had to guilt her into it. It was pretty pathetic. So that's the end of us. Really sucks I wasted the last 4 years with her, but I guess it was better to get out now. It's nice that I can hang out with all my friends again. A girl I'm friends with asked me out on a date, so that's what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm actually pretty nervous. I know it's way too early, but even if it doesn't work out, it should be fun to start dating again. TL.ER, broke up with GF, and she decided that meant we were engaged. Then she threw a fit and broke my iPad and PlayStation. Relevant comments. Comment 1. A girl I'm friends with asked me out on a date, so that's what I'm doing tomorrow. Too soon, bro. OOP. She knows the entire situation. It's not serious. She told me years ago she had a crush on me, but we're good friends now. Who knows what will happen. Comment 2. Perhaps this is why your crazy ex did not like your girlfriends. OOP. Yeah, that's what started it. I don't blame my girlfriend for that. I shut my friend down then and told my girlfriend about it because I didn't want to keep things from her. I don't think I did anything wrong in that situation, but after that she didn't want me talking to any women. Ex-wife who cheated and abandoned her family shows up years later, with another man's child, begging for a second chance. What should I do? Some background here. I, 37 male, and Angela, 36, my ex-wife, had met in our mid-20s. We met when I was about 24 and we were employed by the same company. We were married after 2 years of dating, and 3 years into our marriage we had 2 kids, now 9 and 7 years old. Though I had told her it would be good with me if she did, I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want, hence the second pregnancy was unexpected and she wasn't happy about it. She didn't kill it either. Things were still wonderful between us and we were as in love as we could have following our first daughter. After the second pregnancy though, that changed. She started to get rather irritated, sullen, and started to pick on our eldest or me consistently. Just realizing this was due to all the hormones, I tried to reconcile with this new Angela. After some time, we believed this would change. Instead, things just became worse. Around her, my daughter and I learnt to walk on eggshells. She was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, but I was running everything. After our first child, she had quit her job of her own volition and done all the housework along with looking after our eldest while I worked till she fell pregnant for the second time. She claimed she was too weary to take care of our children and the house, hence we had to get a maid while she was pregnant. I consented, even though it was only somewhat outside our means since at the time I wasn't making enough. Especially considering Angela's pregnancy, I wanted not to trouble her too much. After our second daughter was born, I thought she would come back tending to the house and children throughout the day. Let me also state clearly that I was not among those men who neglected household chores. Though I was tired from working, I did anything I could to help out after returning from my job. I assumed she would take some time to heal after she delivered our younger daughter, but then we would go back to our regular life. Still, several months passed and she showed no change. She refused to help out around the house and stayed exactly as angry and agitated. She would simply spend all day seated at home watching TV. She hardly engaged in any activities with the children either. She would periodically pay our neighbor to drive them to the park. Though I wouldn't want to come across as hostile, I did feel that way as I was working day and night while she wouldn't even do the minimum at home. Additionally, proving somewhat costly for me to pay for a maid to do all the cooking, cleaning and other domestic tasks was, along with all the other bills, I had to look after and wanted to preserve money for our daughter's futures. Angela refused to assist me in any kind, hence that was practically impossible. After around 6 months following the birth of our younger daughter, I realized we could not continue like this and had to speak with Angela. Knowing this would be a challenging conversation, so I requested my parents to watch our girls for the day. They agreed. That day, I sat Angela down and told her I realized she was fatigued with 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to assist me and coordinate with me. I told her that we were finding a maid to be too costly, and I needed her to respect her word and return to at least some of the housework so we may renegotiate and cut the housekeeper's pay to save some money. She claimed she was too busy watching the children to handle any of the housework, so she turned down the proposal right away. She also advised me to start making more instead of justifying our financial condition by pointing out her guilt. Although I attempted to persuade her I was already doing my best, if we were to make this marriage work she needed to help too. I also mentioned how, from what I knew, she simply let the children watch television with her for hours while she watched tacky reality TV, neglecting their needs. The housekeeping had remarked to me casually this as well. She flared up and accused me of spying on her through the maid, so I quickly understood that bringing this up was a big mistake. Saying she was done being pushed about by me and forced to do all the labor while I purportedly did nothing except sit at a desk for a few hours each day, she went on a rant against me. Claiming I should be the man of the house, she then chastised me for asking her to help and blamed me for not being able to pay a maid. While I was the rational one expecting her to help the house, her charges were utterly nonsensical and she was merely grabbing at straws to give the impression that her not doing anything all day was normal. We finally got into a huge argument and she labeled me a loser unable to afford to be with a woman like her. Given how terrified our eldest daughter was of her, I responded by accusing her of being a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother. Now she was failing as a wife too. That comment definitely spoke to her, and she pushed me hard. I stumbled, fell back on the coffee table, broke the glass and hurt myself. I had to get hurried to the ER. She continued to apologize and weep all through, but fortunately my back was only mildly injured. She had to move out. I told her I no longer trusted her. Around the children, I couldn't trust her either as I had no idea when she could lose her fury once more and damage them as well. While Angela was still living, I urged our parents to look after our daughters. She kept protesting for a week, pledging she would never let something like that happen once more, but I couldn't believe her. She begged me to give her another chance. I almost filed for divorce. By the conclusion of the week, we decided she would receive therapy and go live with her parents for some period. I would let her move back in with us only once she had been vetted by a medical professional. She was willing to work on it and improve, thus clearly something was quite wrong with her since happy individuals do not act that way. I also wanted my girls to have their mother, hence I chose not to divorce her just yet and give our marriage another go. While we were living apart, we also began marriage counseling. But, ultimately it proved to be ineffective. She turned out to be cheating on me. Angela was living with her folks when my parents came in to help with my girls. We attended weekly marriage counseling sessions and for some time things looked to be improving. Her therapist contacted me as well. She informed me she had postpartum depression but was improving. Anger problems had been one of her symptoms. She had never had them before, but they became very out of hand when she pushed me. For both of us, that woke us awake. This continued for about a year, and around 6 months in there I even let her visit our girls under my direction. It delighted me to watch her gradually returning to her old self. At last, our circumstances seemed better and we could really make it work. She then abruptly quit showing up for our counseling appointments without giving any reason though. She stopped answering me as well, but given her therapist kept me informed, I knew she was progressing. It did not make sense to me. I persisted in attempting to talk to her for weeks, but she would simply blow me off claiming she needed some alone time. At last, after almost 3 months of her avoiding me, I paid her a visit at her parents' house. Her parents disliked me and blamed me for her actions, thus I hadn't done that previously. They thought I was the one who had driven their daughter insane and produced such behavior. Angela had advised me it would be better if I skipped seeing her while she was living with them since it would simply cause more drama, the last thing we wanted. She had been acting aloof and skipping counseling appointments, hence I disregarded that guideline and paid them nevertheless. She seemed indifferent even when she did sporadically come up, and I simply could not understand it. She insisted everything was good whether I tried personally speaking with her, on the phone, or even by text. But her behavior made it abundantly evident she was hiding something from me. When I arrived at her parents' place, I thought she would be there but she wasn't. Her parents slammed the door in my face when I asked where she was and said they were not permitted to tell me. I had a nasty feeling about it since I could tell they were loving the circumstances. So, standing before their house, I made the decision to phone Angela. My paranoia was developing as I tried phoning her several times but she didn't answer. Desperate, I resolved to try to go inside myself by slipping around the house. Knowing her parents typically kept the kitchen door open, I headed around to the backyard. But I didn't have to travel that far since Angela was seated on a swing in the backyard. The bad news was that she was making out with a man I didn't know, not alone. Because that was the most terrible event of my life, that instant is etched in my head. The man went away as soon as he noticed me, and by the time Angela looked around I was already headed back to my car. I was in total shock, hence she caught up with me and tried to stop me but I was not hearing anything she was saying. I shook her off and warned her not to touch me when she tried to grab me. She neglected, thus I got in my automobile and headed home. I told my parents I wanted them to hire a lawyer for me and blocked Angela everywhere as soon as I got home so she wouldn't have an opportunity to explain. When I paid Angela's parents a visit, I told them of what I had recently seen. She never contacted me once again until we had to visit the court-appointed mediator for our divorce settlement. By then I had essentially become a robot, totally shut off emotionally but driven only for the benefit of my girls. Even when I learned Angela was entering her parental rights, I felt nothing. She had decided she wanted to be with the guy, let's call him Sean, who I saw her with instead of with us. He was her friend from childhood. Although they had drifted apart during high school, they got back together when she moved back home with her parents. Apparently she had developed feelings for him. Her parents apparently encouraged this, hence it's likely why they didn't object to her kissing him in their backyard even though she is a married woman with 2 kids. Apparently, they had always wanted her to wind up with Sean, and they were glad Angela was at last choosing herself and her own happiness, as if she had ever been capable of doing anything other than that. She wanted to qualify for alimony, hence the divorce was a protracted procedure even though she had been cheating on me. Though it took some time, my attorney and I battled valiantly to ensure she received nothing in the divorce. Since I had been the one paying for everything while she watched TV at home, it was all rightly mine. The divorce was finalized 5 years ago, and we were successful in ensuring she left empty-handed. Though I knew I couldn't break since I had to look after my girls, who had nobody but me, the months I spent handling the divorce were some of the toughest periods I had. I can never enough thank my parents for being there for me when I balanced job and childcare. They are quite helpful and supportive. 5 years have gone by, and although at first the divorce seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me, I am glad for it today. Had I not chosen to leave Angela, I do not see myself where I am right now. Since then, life has given me good treatment. In every sense, I am in a far better place. We moved into a larger house since I make more now and I have no more responsibility for anyone except my girls. Although they live nearby, my parents only pay occasional visits. My daughters are as delighted as could be, and I have friends that love me. All a man needs is that. I am so grateful to the universe that everything is working for me. At least, it was until Angela reappeared a few days ago. The doorbell rang when the children were at school and I was ready to head off to work. Angela was outside standing with a boy less than 3 or 4 years old at her side. This has to be Angela's son, I knew. Her standing at my door startled me, and I was still processing it when she started crying. She came here, she informed me, to atone and right things with me. She declared she was at last ready to be a family once more and offer our marriage another shot. She was returning after all these years, eager to give our marriage another try as if it were up to her to make that choice. It still astounds me. I chose in a short second to shut the door and turn her away since I wanted to avoid whatever this was. I informed her earlier that this was no longer her family. The day she broke off contact with Sean, I had stopped being her husband. She had given up custody of her daughter, hence she had no right to speak to us as her family. The divorce was only a legal requirement. I closed the door after saying that and instructed her to go as I wanted her nowhere close to my property. Though I was very furious and could have cursed her as well, I held back since the small child made me hesitate. For a few minutes after I closed her out, I could hear her crying outside my door. I chose to ignore it. I headed off to work once I confirmed the coast was free. I tried very hard not to think about it as I couldn't afford to let it happen and it would only sap my will. I nearly forgot that Angela had even shown up at my house, but as soon as I got back from work, my parents called me asking why I had sent her away. Angela had been heartbroken, they told me, having contacted them following my closing of the door on her. Since she was in the process of divorcing Sean and at last had an opportunity to make things right with me, my parents disclosed they were the ones who had provided her my new address and urged her to visit me. They informed me Angela had contacted them roughly 1 month ago and that this had been under development for some time. My parents thought it was about time I considered my children since my daughters deserved a mother and in their view Angela was the best mother available. They thus determined she deserved another shot and sent her my address and with guidance on what to say to me. I took great offense at them. Not even asking if I would be comfortable with it, it was not their position to pardon her or determine she deserved another shot. If the children had been home, it may have been quite dangerous, so their pulling of something like this was reckless. They denied that they had made a mistake even as I corrected them. They claimed they had an equal right to decide what was best for the girls since they had taken care of the kids and aided me during my divorce. They also said they still periodically look after them. They thought it pointless whether or not I wanted to fix things with Angela since they had influence in the situation as well. Their belief in that seemed ludicrous to me. My daughters are mine, not hers at the end of the day. Although I value my parents and will always be appreciative of what they did during the divorce, I do not believe it was their place to let Angela re-enter my life. We argued a little, but they felt that by not giving Angela another opportunity, I was the one acting selfishly. They assured me they had done their due research and she was a different woman now, deserving of living with my girls. They claimed it was offensive to consider they would endanger my girls or me even when I informed them she had signed her rights away. Being too conceited to realize that my daughters needed their mother, they said I was destroying their life. It has been a couple days now, and I do not believe I was selfish or out of line. I have given this much thought. Update 1. Angela arrived up to my home with her son approximately a week ago and lately I learned the truth about her connection with her parents. Since I'm still trying to understand it personally and I honestly find it so upsetting not even knowing where to start. How all of them have deceived me without thinking twice is unbelievable. Apparently, my parents had been in communication with Angela all along in addition to telling her my new address. After the divorce, I cut her off from my life, but they hadn't since they thought she would visit at some time. They hardly spoke, just once a month perhaps, but that was plenty for me to feel cheated from. After Angela was handed the divorce papers, Sean had Angela sign away her rights. He had set her an ultimatum. Either keep in contact with her children and battle for custody, therefore leaving him behind, or ditch her family and establish a new life with him. According to my parents, she had had a tough decision. She chose Sean and opted to start a new family with him rather than remain with the one she already knew. Angela had contacted her parents soon after I filed for divorce to explain her circumstances and request their assistance since she still wanted to keep intimate contact with her children. She said she felt driven into a position by both Sean pushing her to completely forsake her children and me advocating for full custody with supervised visits. Her prospects of obtaining partial custody were low even if she battled for custody and opposed Sean because of the circumstances of our divorce and her history of anger management problems. Her time and money seemed wasted fighting for custody. Should she choose to battle, she had a very real risk losing Sean and custody of our girls in the end. My parents entered at that point. Angela visited with them individually and essentially begged them to let her keep contact with our girls. She asked them to be a link between her and the children, thereby helping her out. Angela understood she would lose any visitation rights once she signed away her parental rights. As their grandparents, my parents intended to take advantage of their visiting rights though. By going behind my back to let Angela meet our girls, they effectively misled me for years. Saying Angela's plight resonated with them, they explained their behavior as they couldn't, in good conscience, keep a mother apart from her children. Still, stabbing their own son in the rear seemed to have no effect on their conscience at all. They acknowledged that Angela would be invited over and allowed to spend time with them anytime I left the children off at their place. My parents would pay my daughters toys and candy to be quiet, hence they never told me they were seeing their mother. My girls would tell me they played games with their grandparents and their friend anytime I asked what they had done at their grandparents' house. I always assumed they were referring to my parents' real friends, whom I already knew, but apparently my parents had told my daughters to call their mother the friend should I ask about their day. Although I couldn't believe my girls had been lying to me. I pardoned them since Angela and my parents had obviously coerced and threatened them into silence. It's only for kids. I asked my daughters whether they had been meeting their mother behind my back once I found the truth out from my parents. They began to cry and informed me they felt they would be punished by God should they say anything, so they were unable to say anything. Angela and my dad have to have really hammered it into their minds that telling me the truth would have disastrous results. They had been so evasive and covert all along for this reason. For never asking my girls which of their parents' friends they had been seeing, I also felt like a bad father. I never would have known. It could have been someone deadly simply. But since I am receiving a restraining order against all of them, I am ending this right now. Since my parents emailed me confessing everything following our argument, I already had written evidence. They thought the email would help me to understand Angela's desperation to be a mother to her daughters while juggling her relationship with Sean. Though all it accomplished was to prove they were all lying to me and I couldn't trust anyone anymore, they believed it would make me forgive everyone involved. Angela signed away her parental rights and had to sneak about to meet the children like it was a crime, all because Sean wanted her to have no contact with her former family. Which is ironic. Originally meant to be her one true love, all of it was for nothing as they are divorcing. Though according to my parents Sean now wants nothing to do with any of them, they even had a son together. Angela didn't want to depart since their son had just begun kindergarten and she had started working again. He got a job offer and is leaving in a few months. Their arguments had been getting more intense for some time. 3 months ago, Sean told her he was done and headed off to accept the job. Though all this disclosure did was make me feel as though justice had at last been done, it was meant to make me sorry for Angela. My attorney has already advised me. The petition for restraining orders has been filed. My daughters and I have also had a decent conversation on everything. I warned them they would never see their mother or grandparents once again going forward. They seem good right now, but we are still working through it in therapy since I know this will be challenging for them. For the past 5 years, they most certainly have found it difficult. This ends immediately. Update 2. Hi everyone. I greatly appreciate all the attention and help. I truly appreciate all the wonderful blessings and messages directed towards my girls. Angela and my parents should show up in court in a few days. They have been issued restraining orders. I have blocked them on every platform, thus I have no idea how they feel about any of this. I have also advised friends not to talk to them should they try to get in touch. I have been working from home for the past few days and have added security around my place. I told the school where my girls go. I first wanted not to send the children to school for a few days, but I wanted their education not to suffer as a result. Their teachers are now monitoring them, none save me is permitted to pick them up after school. Things have so far been nice. I hope they will keep away once the restraining orders are issued. Update 3. Hello, here is a brief update, but we obtained restraining orders. Angela, my parents and Sean have to keep their distance from me and my girls for the next 5 years, else, they will suffer major penalties. The previous time I saw them, they appeared really hostile, hence I am maintaining all the security precautions for a period since I want to avoid any risk. Regular family counseling sessions are attended by my daughters and me. I think we will make great progress in the next months. To be honest, we have already advanced really much. Right now I just want my daughters to be happy. That is all. Kindly keep forwarding us your best wishes, we really need them. Crazy mother-in-law and father-in-law arrested after attempting to trespass on our land and being attacked by bees on the neighbor's property. I reside in a very rural place on a tiny ranch that has been in my family since my grandfather's day. We are around 15 minutes from the nearest little town. When I say small, I actually mean small. My wife and I met by happenstance around 6 years ago when I stopped in town to pick up some groceries. She gave off a tomboy feeling and had recently arrived in the region. She had recently finished school and discovered that she despised city life and wished to return to something more familiar. I will get to that later. I believe she noticed me come in with my pickup and some big equipment and came over to ask what kind of animals I had. She soon came to the point. She was looking for work? She had previous experience with cattle and was new to the region. It's unusual in our area to see single women looking for ranch hand employment, but she claimed she could prove herself, and if I wasn't impressed, I could drive her back to town and drop her off at the bus stop. I was seeking an extra hand for the next few months and had considered asking my neighbor's lads, but I decided to give her a chance. I'm pleased I did, since she had a strong work ethic and was proactive about everything on the ranch. I let her remain in a guest room in the main home for the first week until she saved enough money for an apartment. Within 6 months she moved back in and we began dating. 8 months later, we married in a quiet ceremony attended by approximately 20 friends and family members. Her uncle was the only family member that turned up. Her uncle was a tank of a man, even in his old age, and he had a sheep farm in Northern California. During the ceremony, we talked a little about business, and he was pleased to give my wife away. I could tell how the father influenced her work ethic and livestock knowledge. However, there was one topic that my wife disliked discussing: her biological parents. At first, she only mentioned there was bad blood between them, which was great because we didn't know each other well yet. However, once we were engaged, I wanted to learn more about her family and what I was getting into. Her mother, the professor, worked at a college teaching a subject I would most likely never study. My wife portrayed her father, Phil, as a weak man who would do whatever the professor desired. Some of the details she told me about her mother's actions seemed ludicrous and borderline psychotic. For example, in middle school, the professor tried to obtain my wife a girlfriend by claiming she was a lesbian. Now, while my wife is a tomboy, she is not a lesbian. There was also a time when the professor desired to live a natural lifestyle, and begged Phil's brother to allow them to reside on his property. Within a week, the professor despised it and summoned them both back to the city. My wife, on the other hand, adored the farm and felt a connection to both it and her uncle. She left home at 16 and stayed with her uncle until she was 18. The professor repeatedly threatened to drag her back home, but never followed through. After turning 18, my wife went to school, received a 4-year degree, and tried an office job but found it unsatisfactory. She began traveling the bus to rural locations in search of suitable work, and this is how we met. Last year, around March, we began receiving mail addressed to the professor and Phil, including bills, bank statements, and the like. I thought this was unusual, but my wife wanted to throw it all away. I began labeling the letters "Return to Sender" and "No Such Occupant," and returned them to the mailbox. This situation worsened in October. I was tidying up the yard when a brilliant white SUV arrived with a U-Haul trailer attached. My wife looked up and turned pale. "Oh God, it's them," she exclaimed. A plump woman and a slender man, who only distantly resembled her uncle, emerged. The professor instantly approached my wife. "Professor. Well, let me take a look at you. It has been years." The wife: "Mom, what are you doing here?" "Your instructor. The university is doing virtual classes, and with COVID, we figured we could self-isolate at our ranch." She placed an unusual emphasis on the word "our." "You. Excuse me, but this isn't your ranch." "Professor. I'm confident we can resolve the ownership issue. Aren't you going to invite us in?" "Me? Ma'am, you might be my wife's mother, but you're a stranger to me. I would rather not." The professor turned to Phil. "Professor. Make the call." Phil immediately called the cops and began constructing a story about us refusing to let them into the house that they co-owned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was insanely twisted. Fortunately, as I indicated earlier, it is a small town. The sheriff approached, and it was someone I had known for most of my life. The sheriff exemplifies the ethos of a small-town constable. He strives to be a peacemaker and peacekeeper first and foremost. He was also aware that the land had been in my family for 3 generations. "Sheriff, please explain. What's this I hear about you selling half your ranch, Duke?" "Me? I did not. These are my wife's parents, and they believe they have a legal claim to my land." "Professor. Not think? We have lived here since February. With tenant laws that means—" "Sheriff, you know. Funny, I don't remember you in town." That quieted the professor for a moment, but then she delved into her purse and drew out a stack of mail, mostly bills and bank statements with our ranch's address on them. "Professor. Then how do you explain these?" The sheriff took the letters and examined them. "Sheriff, you're welcome. Ma'am, these are all marked "Return to Sender." The professor became desperate. "Professor. Please, I have not seen my daughter in years. I just want to make sure she is okay. Surely, you can see that he," she pointed at me, "controls her every move." The sheriff rolled his eyes and approached to speak with my wife and me again. He enjoys resolving interpersonal conflicts, but he had never experienced such craziness. Sheriff, you might want to invite them in for coffee and chat for a few minutes. They're your parents. My spouse? If you leave them here, you'll just have to come back in 5 minutes to handle an assault. Sheriff, you can't mean that. They are your family. Look, I'm just heading up the road. Invite them in and talk to them. Wife's eyes flashed with rage. Your wife asked, does this mean you're going to invite your cousin Aaron to Thanksgiving? Aaron, the sheriff's cousin, was now serving an 8-year sentence for a variety of felonies. The sheriff's entire family regarded him a source of disgrace. The sheriff's expression changed after he made that statement. He gave my wife a look like, that bad, huh? And she simply nodded. The sheriff turned back to face the professor and Phil. Sheriff. Okay, they don't want you here. It's best if you don't come back. The two protested briefly before piling back into the SUV and driving away, with the sheriff following behind to verify they were completely off the property. This was my first meeting with the professor and Phil, and it left a lasting impression. Previously, I described how my wife's mother, the professor, made an unusual attempt to grab control of our property back in October. Things became crazier in December. Keep in mind that we reside in a little village approximately an hour from a major city, so we're not completely isolated. Our ranch is approximately 15 minutes from town via farm road. To give you the lay of the land, I stopped in town to grab some supplies, and by the time I finished packing up the truck, the professor tapped me on the shoulder. This time, she truly acted friendly. I decided to be curt. She literally begged me to listen to her for 5 minutes at the neighborhood cafe. I didn't want to set up a scene on Main Street, so I agreed. We sat down, and the lecturer began speaking. She claimed that my wife was always unsure of who she was, and that the professor and Phil only had her best interests in mind. I didn't want to rant or make charges. I was just waiting for the talk to end. Then she explained, your wife saw you coming and wedged herself into my life. I pushed back. I stated that I felt blessed to have her in my life. Professor, what do you mean blessed? Me? Pardon? Professor, you just said blessed. I put my head in my hands and wished it was over. Everyone in the cafe stared at the two of us. With her final sentence, the lecturer projected her voice. My response was, ma'am, if you're trying to win me over, I suggest you stop using vinegar. She huffed at the phrase but then became friendly again. She reached into her purse and took out a flash drive, laying it on the table between us. Professor. Okay, that's all the proof you need. Take a peek, and I guarantee you'll discover the truth. I was dying within, not just from shame, but also from the manner my mother-in-law behaved in front of individuals with whom I do business on a regular basis. They would certainly want to know what had transpired. Like I stated, it's a little town. I took the flash drive and fled. I returned to the property, where my wife was waiting. She could tell something had happened in town by the pissed-off expression on my face. I recounted what had happened while holding up the flash drive. My wife was baffled by it. I wasn't about to plug it into a computer we use on a regular basis, so I hunted through a closet for an old Dell laptop that hadn't been turned on in ages. We charged it, turned it on, and blocked the Wi-Fi, my wife's suggestion. We plugged the flash drive in and discovered heaps of PDFs. I'm still not sure how to convey what was within. It looked like a journal, a college article, or a thesis research, with my wife as the topic. I'm not sure what the aim was, or what the professor was testing on her own flesh and blood. It described her first experiences with toy dump trucks as a child, as well as dressed in overalls during their brief stay with her uncle, all of which were chilly, disconnected and, as my wife described it, clinical. My wife was referred to as the subject throughout. It was odd and I'm still unsure what the point was. My wife was outraged by the PDFs and urged us to burn the drive, which we did in the fire pit. That was the last time we heard from the professor, but my wife believes more will come. First and foremost, I want to mention that my wife is doing well. She's amused rather than terrified or furious, yet I can tell when she feels the need to be protected. We placed a new camera directed straight at the gate, which I'm keeping locked. I noted in the comments that we had a FaceTime contact with my wife's uncle last night to see if we could gain any additional information. Her uncle initially provided brief responses, such as, yeah, sounds like her, and sounds about right. He is a don't speak ill of others type of chap. When I told him about the strange play for the ranch, he eventually revealed additional facts. Whoever predicted she'd do this before with his sheep farm gets a gold star. He stated that the professor was a major reason why he and Phil no longer speak. My wife's uncle's sheep farm was part of a much larger property owned by her grandfather. The grandfather had 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter. The daughter relocated to the East Coast and worked in a high-paying executive position. She is nearing retirement and was the oldest of the siblings. When the grandfather passed away, he divided his property into 3 portions. His daughter gave her half to the uncle for nearly nothing because she did not desire rural property and understood her uncle wanted to keep the farm running. The other son, Phil, retained ownership but granted uncle permission to use it. That was until Phil decided to attend an expensive university and sold his portion of the land to uncle for a good price. Uncle was able to maintain all of grandfather's land intact. Phil dated the professor during his undergraduate years and eventually married her. Uncle only heard bits and pieces because Phil only called around Thanksgiving and birthdays. That was it for many years. A few years later, the professor was in what uncle described as a hipster phase when he learned about the farm. She didn't just show up, Phil asked first. Phil understood rural life, but the professor did not. Uncle portrayed the professor's ideal farm life as waking up to a kale smoothie, digging beets for lunch, and spending the rest of the day in the sun. If you live on a farm or ranch, you know there are plenty of everyday duties. Uncle's farm was largely a sheep farm, but they also had a vegetable garden and a small orchard, which provided enough of work. Uncle went easy on the professor, assigning her only a few tasks such as pruning dead vines in the garden and airing the compost. She took it as an agony. She nearly devastated Uncle's tomato crop that year, forcing him to redo the compost every evening. But the way she grumbled, you'd think she was looking after the entire orchard and all the sheep. She disliked manual labor but was strangely drawn to the concept of a farm. In my experience, joy cannot exist without pain. My wife, on the other hand, took to it right away. She enjoyed checking fences, maintaining the flock, distributing feed and working in the vegetable garden. Uncle mentioned that they had a local butcher who came by on occasion to take a couple lambs, depending on price and demand. The butcher paid the professor a visit once when he was on the farm. The butcher was a black man, which Uncle didn't bother or care about, but the professor made a big deal of welcoming him by shaking his hand and spoke in a sing-song, high-pitched tone. Uncle thought this was weird, so he mentioned it to us. The professor desired the farm but did not want to work it. She wanted to own it on paper and have Uncle and her husband manage it. She even persuaded her husband to fight the sale he had made with Uncle a few years before, in order to gain partial ownership. Of course, this went nowhere. Uncle had to pay a lawyer, but the case never reached court. After that, Uncle and the rest of the family refused to speak with Phil. I was curious, so I asked Uncle why the professor yelled at me when I stated I was blessed to have my wife. He chuckled and added, "Really kicked that hornet's nest, huh?" Then he mentioned that the first night the professor stayed with Uncle, he and his wife cooked dinner. When they sat at the table, Uncle was about to say grace. My wife flushed when he mentioned this. Apparently, this is a humiliating memory for her. The lecturer exclaimed, "This family doesn't say grace." Uncle shrugged. He wanted to be flexible and told her she didn't have to participate if she didn't want to. She tried to push things even farther, demanding that as long as she was in that house, no one would say grace. Uncle stated that this was the first time he had been disrespectful to the professor, and that no guest would tell him what he could and could not do in his own home. I'm not sure why the lecturer believed that individuals in rural areas did not attend church. After hearing about the sheep farm, I will contact a lawyer. We'll see how it goes. I believe I mentioned it in a previous piece, but we live in a tiny town, and my wacky mother-in-law, the professor, has already caused a stir in only 2 appearances, one at our house and another in town. What I appreciate about small communities is that everyone feels like family and looks out for one another. What I detest about small communities is how quickly gossip spread. The sheriff from my initial post is completely on our side. Dan has done his best to explain to everybody who asks that it is not their business. The difficulty is between my wife and me. We attempted to be social in town before COVID. We attended church regularly and took part in potlucks. I hired my neighbor's boys to help out on the ranch numerous times over the summer. We enjoy being social. When the professor created a disturbance at the cafe in December, I could feel the town's attention on me. Nobody knows what happened, but they want to. I can feel it. They are too polite to ask, yet not enough to avoid whispering. It's getting to us. The sheriff informed me that last week, the local pastor directly asked him what was going on with my wife and her mother. The sheriff stated that the pastor believed there should be an easy answer. Sheriff caught it in the bud. My wife's statements had a greater impact than we anticipated. The sheriff stated that unless we requested assistance, it was neither his nor the pastor's responsibility. He did remark to the pastor, and I recall how the sheriff put it to me, "They're part of your flock. She," referring to the professor, "is the wolf. Become an excellent shepherd." Despite this, I continue to receive strange looks whenever I am in town. Scenes like the one in December are unusual around here. Any advice? So it eventually occurred. The professor and Phil are in jail. The circumstances are also unusual, but we are relieved that a resolution has been reached. 2 nights ago, the sheriff called us in the middle of the day. My wife picked up, and after a few minutes of conversation, she began chuckling. She told me what the sheriff said. It appears the professor and Phil decided to try to sneak onto our property. Why? I can't predict this woman. The professor decided that instead of attempting to enter the ranch via the farm road, which we can see from our house, she and Phil would park a bit further away and enter our land via a neighbor's property. My neighbor to the east owns a small orchard and is a hobby beekeeper. He doesn't receive much honey each year, but what he does get he shares or sells at the farmer's market. The bees had just begun to pollinate the field chickweed here. The professor evidently stumbled upon his bee boxes, actually bumping into one. The bees start swarming her, and either she or Phil become enraged and kick one of the boxes over. My neighbor has a sensor perimeter around his bee boxes in case of bears, and it went off. He dashed to his bee boxes and saw 2 middle-aged people batting at bees and yelling. My neighbor phoned the authorities, and after about 20 minutes of attempting to burn and hose the bees down, he swiftly filed charges for the destruction of his bee box and trespassing. Apparently, there are additional charges for interrupting and ruining a farm's agricultural capabilities since his bees pollinate his orchard. They left. Both were apparently coated in stings and are currently in county jail. The sheriff stated that the professor is attempting to argue that the area where the bee boxes are located is a public easement and that she has legal access to it. For the time being, however, it is over. Everyone here breathes a great sigh of relief. After my wife's betrayal with my business partner, I guard my daughter's future while they try to reinsert themselves in our lives. My ex-wife Kathy, 38, and I, 38, had been together for 19 years and married for 16. We also had a 14-year-old daughter together, however she left approximately 6 months ago to be with my previous work partner. To be more specific, my ex-work partner, as he sold his shares and left the company once I uncovered the affair. Leon, the guy I used to run the firm with, was a co-worker and a close friend. We agreed to quit our jobs and form a company together. We'd been working together for 5 years, and he'd had an affair with my wife for 3 of them. I learned about it approximately 6 months ago when I discovered some text messages on my wife's phone. When I challenged her about it, she didn't even try to dispute it and instead accepted everything. She told me she was sick and tired of hiding things and simply wanted to leave. I was saddened since I had no notion she was unhappy in our marriage, and I was willing to do anything to change that. So on the day I confronted her, when she announced she was leaving, I assured her we could still make it work. That was very stupid of me, but I was desperate. She simply became irritated with me and stated that the only reason she married me in the first place was because she was pregnant and didn't want to be alone. She'd tried to love me for 16 years, but it hadn't worked. She was not going to let me stop her now that she had found someone she truly loved. She explained that now that I knew about the affair, her secret had been revealed, and I had to swallow it and move on. I was heartbroken, especially for the sake of our daughter, but she didn't even hesitate to leave. She filed for divorce, and the petition was quite simple. She simply wanted to leave and did not demand a settlement or alimony from me. The asset distribution was fairly balanced. We concluded the divorce after a few months. After a while, I knew that what had transpired would prevent me from making it work with her. After we filed for divorce, I faced Leon, who just apologized, claiming he had wanted to tell me about the affair for a long time but didn't know how. Within a few weeks, he quit and informed me that he and Kathy would be moving away to avoid causing further trouble for me. Kathy had been offered a fantastic job in Boston, and his cousin lived there, so he could work alongside him instead. He sent all of this in an email, and we never spoke again. The last time I saw Kathy was 2 months ago, on the day our divorce was finalized. Since then, I have not heard from one of them. My kid and I were going through a difficult time, but we were getting by. At least I still had my business to manage, which kept me busy since I wanted to provide my daughter the future she deserved. However, Kathy returned about a week ago and I'm still not sure if my daughter and I did the right thing. So around a week ago, at 11 p.m., someone began furiously ringing our doorbell and knocking. My daughter had already gone to bed and I was finishing up some work in my office when it happened. We hurried to the door to check and through the glass, we saw Kathy. My daughter urged me not to open the door because she was furious with her mother. Despite having partial custody, Kathy has made little effort to communicate with our daughter and the fact that she cheated does not sit well with her either. Their relationship is tight right now, but I knew if Kathy was at my house at such a late hour, it had to be urgent, so I opened the door and allowed her in. Instead of coming in, she started ranting at me from the doorstep, threatening to sue me. She insisted on taking this to court so she could receive everything she was owed, since she couldn't believe I had chosen to punish her so harshly. For the first few seconds, I had no understanding what she was saying, and I had to urge her to slow down and elucidate since I was so perplexed. She was still upset and said there was no need for me to pretend I didn't know, because she was certain I had withheld Leon's true character from her to punish her for cheating. Then she pulled up her shirt sleeve and showed me a place on her arm covered in a band-aid. I concluded Leon must have done something, which surprised me because we had worked together for several years and he had never lost his cool in front of me. Kathy told me that they had been arguing for the past few weeks, ever since they moved to Boston. Nothing had remained the same since their move. She assumed it was because Leon was still adjusting to his new life, but after a month there, he was acting as if everything was Kathy's fault. He apparently kept accusing her of wrecking his life because he had to abandon the business he had fought so hard to build. Now he had to work with his cousin, who was always undermining him, and he blamed Kathy for everything. She was the one who told me about the affair before he was ready, and now he had to relocate to Boston for her work, so he couldn't compete for the business either. They'd been arguing every night, and the night before she arrived, he got incredibly angry and threw a vase at her. She attempted to dodge it, but it still struck her arm, causing a cut. Until that point, he had only verbally abused her, but this time it had gone too far, and she had left the house that night to take the next flight here to tell me about it. She told me that Leon had not even tried to contact her or apologize after she departed. She said I was to blame for this because she believed I was aware of his violent behavior and had concealed it from her in order to punish her. She thought it was unfair of me to do so, especially because she believed she had done me a favor by not fighting for anything during the divorce. I couldn't even get her back and secure her safety. It was all pretty foolish because, as I already stated, I had worked with Leon for a long time and knew him well, but just on a professional level. In the office, he was much different. I had never dated him and had only met the ladies he had previously dated, so there was no way I could have known about this side of him. Her charges that I had hidden everything on purpose made no sense to me, and I was furious that she was acting as if I owed her something. I attempted to explain to her that I had no idea about all of this and that I was deeply sorry that it was happening to her, but it was ultimately her fault. She could threaten me with litigation all she wanted, but she understood it wasn't my fault. She continued to argue, stating that I knew everything and that she would fight for everything she didn't get during our divorce. My daughter had been waiting at the door the entire time, and I had almost completely forgotten about her since I was so preoccupied with the fight. When we started talking in circles, she interrupted Kathy and told her to go. I was astonished since I didn't expect her to interrupt, and I believe Kathy was caught off guard. Kathy then advised my daughter to stop up and keep out of it because she was too little to understand what was happening. She told my daughter to go to bed, but she refused. She held firm and stated that Kathy had no right to speak to me in this manner, especially given what she had put me through. My daughter reminded Kathy that I had been sad for the past few months, ever since I discovered her infidelity. Kathy, the cruel and heartless monster that she was, simply carried on with her life. She then pointed out that Kathy had neglected to visit her own daughter or stay in touch since she was preoccupied with Leon and her new life. My daughter informed Kathy that she had failed to be a good wife and mother, thus she had no business acting like a victim in a scenario she had made for herself. My daughter is only 14, but seeing her express those things made me realize how much she had matured since the divorce. Kathy was completely speechless and unable to respond to our daughter's statements. Finally, my daughter informed Kathy that now that she had gone and was living with Leon, she would have to cope with whatever she was going through on her own because we were no longer her family. Kathy had dug her own grave, and now she had to lie in it. Which was exactly what she deserved for screwing people over. After saying this, my daughter slammed the door in Kathy's face and returned to her room. I could hear Kathy crying outside the door, but I didn't bother checking on her because I didn't think it was necessary given our recent chat. I too went back to bed, trying not to think about the issue for the following few days while keeping myself busy at work. I was quite proud of my daughter for standing up for me and not allowing me to appear weak in front of Kathy. Things were going well after that visit, but 3 days ago Kathy showed up again, this time with a lawyer, demanding complete custody of our kid. Fortunately, our daughter was out with a couple of friends when she came over in the evening, so I haven't told her anything about it yet. I was furious when Kathy informed me that after our daughter spoke with her the last time we met, she decided she would no longer allow our daughter to live with me. She informed me that the actual reason she hadn't tried to contact our daughter after I found out about the affair was that she didn't want to become involved in a lengthy custody battle that would disturb my life much more than she already had. This, she claimed, was why she wanted to depart discreetly and hadn't attempted to contact our daughter. She thought it would have made matters worse because I was furious about the situation. So she was basically trying to tell me that she did all of this for my sake, not just to get out of having any responsibilities. I was clearly not buying it, and I informed her that the only reason she didn't fight for anything during the divorce, let alone custody of our kid, was that she wanted to leave swiftly and start a new life with Leon. This had nothing to do with me, as she tried to make it seem, therefore I didn't need to feel sorry for her. However, she stated that she no longer cared about that since she now desired full custody of our daughter and was determined to ensure that she received it. She insisted that she would not let me ruin my daughter's opinion of her by telling her ridiculous stories and training her to disrespect her mother. Kathy said that during our last meeting, our daughter was extremely disrespectful to her, and that I encouraged this conduct. She now knew what to do and had returned to inform me that she was taking this to court. I told her to be my guest and close the door because I didn't want to waste any more time talking to her. However, I began to question whether she had a point. I wanted to believe I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't sure, to be honest, so I felt bad about not reprimanding my daughter when she was rude to her mother. Update 1. I've determined that I have nothing to be sorry for. My daughter did the correct thing in sticking up for me, and the comments made me understand how silly I was. She cheated on me, so I don't think I should feel sorrow or regret for what happened to her. Many people in the comments urged me to speak with my daughter first, since it would be unfair for her to be caught off guard if Kathy applies for full custody after our last meeting. So I told my kid about it yesterday. I didn't want to withhold anything from her. She has already demonstrated to me that she is grown enough to handle these situations, and I feel horrible that she had to mature overnight. At least now, I can help her prepare for the future. So yet, we haven't heard from Kathy, but we expect to shortly. Our daughter is 14, which means she can be considered in court if the situation escalates. If we can reach an agreement during mediation, that would be ideal, but just in case, I have confirmed that she actually wants to stay with me. She has made it clearly plain that she doesn't want anything to do with Kathy, not just now anyhow. She told me that in the future, she would contemplate reuniting with Kathy and restoring their connection, but for the time being, everything is too fresh. She clearly blames her mother for splitting up the family, and I can't say anything because it's technically correct. I don't want to be the type of father who turns his child against his ex-partner for petty reasons, but in this case, I don't think there is much I can do. Kathy has done a fantastic job alienating our daughter, who now prefers to keep her distance from her own mother. They were fairly close before the affair came to light, so this is a significant departure from what they were both used to. Kathy is clearly irritated that my daughter is on my side, as she has always attempted to be closer to her. Speaking of which, several of you wanted to know who informed our daughter about the affair. It was Kathy, not me. She confessed in an email to our daughter a few days after she moved out, without first asking if I wanted to be involved. My kid was really unhappy when she found out, but she still wanted to speak with her mother just once. However, Kathy refused. When I tried to contact Kathy to let her know our daughter wanted to talk, she refused because she was too preoccupied with the divorce process. She also didn't think it was proper to discuss it, so she expressed what she wanted to say in that email and had nothing else to add. I attempted to persuade her to speak with our daughter only once because she appeared to have a lot of questions. However, Kathy remained adamant about her decision. After that, she stopped speaking to us entirely, and my daughter's perception of her mother shifted dramatically. Kathy holding me responsible for that does not seem fair to me. Anyway, I've spoken with my lawyer and we're going to deal with this. Update 2. Kathy ultimately served me with the notice for full custody a few days ago, and my lawyer and I responded by fighting it right away. We are scheduled to meet with the court-appointed mediator tomorrow, but Leon called me today. I was shocked to see his name on my phone because we didn't have much to chat about, but I answered the call. As soon as I did, he asked me to return Kathy to him. He claimed he'd been trying to reach her for a few days and knew she'd been with me or spoken to me, so he wanted me to tell her where she was. I told him I had no idea where she was residing, but I had spoken with her in the last several days and she was here to battle for custody of our kid. To be clear, I did not do this to help Leon, but I hope that if Leon stopped by and chatted with Kathy, he might alter her mind and convince her to return. If I was lucky, he might even get her to sign over her rights to our daughter. With that in mind, I told him everything and added that she was upset since he had not contacted her after she left that night. I urged that if he wanted her back, he should act immediately. The poor guy had no suspicions and had no idea he was being exploited, which worked out perfectly for me. I just hope Kathy still wants to make it work with him. When he comes back, she might accompany him. I also discussed this idea with my lawyer, who confirmed that what I did was correct. Even though the odds are already in our favor, it doesn't hurt to save time and energy by resolving this before going to court. Update 3. Kathy and I met for our first mediation session 2 days ago and it obviously did not go well. She disagreed with all of our views and said it was all a waste of time before ending the session after half an hour. After she left, I returned home after picking up my kid from school. When we returned, Leon was waiting for us at our door. The poor guy appeared to be in a dreadful state, and I can only imagine how he must be feeling after spending a few months with Kathy. I told him he needed to leave because my daughter and I had just returned home and wanted to rest. We didn't have time to cope with his turmoil, and I had already helped him in whatever way I could. I couldn't go out of my way to aid the man who had been having an affair with my wife, but he actually broke down, claiming that after their last battle, she hadn't even responded to any of his texts, and he had no idea where to seek for her. I informed him, as I had before, that I still didn't know where she lived and that I couldn't help him. He just slumped down on the front steps, crying and holding his head in his hands. At that moment I began to become upset since this guy and Kathy had literally ruined my life, and now he felt comfortable enough to seek my assistance in finding her so they could settle things. I ordered my daughter to go inside so I could deal with this, and after she was inside, I told Leon he needed to leave because I was done with both of them for good. For good measure, I gave him Kathy's parents' contact information and told him to call them if he couldn't reach her, but he had to leave us alone immediately. I told him that he had damaged both mine and Kathy's lives. He tried to apologize, saying he didn't mean to harm me, but he'd fallen in love with her and couldn't stop himself. I didn't want to hear it, so I said nothing, and he departed. I'm constantly exhausted and bewildered, and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life right now. I sincerely hope and pray that Leon and Kathy can make things right for my sake, if not theirs, because if they do, they will most likely leave me and my kid alone, and I will finally be able to move on with my life. At this point, I'm not sure what's going on or how I should feel about anything. I'm numb for the most part and can't wait for this to be over. Update 4. Kathy stopped our mediation sessions a few days ago, saying she wanted to take our case to court. That would not end well for her, as we all knew, but it appears she was no longer in denial. Anyway, she came to see me a few hours ago with Leon. I suppose they were able to patch things up. I didn't invite them in since my daughter was home and unwell, and I didn't want to make things worse for her. I ordered them to wait for me at a nearby cafe, called my mother to take care of my daughter, and then went to the cafe to hash things out. When I arrived, Kathy and Leon apologized for everything they had put me through. Again, I had to inform them that this no longer mattered to me. I really wanted them to move on and explain why they had called me there. I didn't want to waste my time with insincere apologies, so they stopped skirting the issue and informed me that they recognized they had made a mistake by screwing me over and that they were really unhappy in Boston. Kathy missed our daughter, while Leon missed being his own boss. Kathy now wanted me to agree to send our daughter to see her every weekend, or every other weekend, because she didn't want to give up her current life. Leon's demands were even more outrageous. He wanted to return as a partner in the company and open a branch in Boston. The finest part of all was that they expected me to make a decision within a few days. Kathy's bosses had advised her that if she wanted to keep her job, she needed to return because she could no longer work from home. Even if I wanted to tell them I would think about it, I didn't have the option. That's why I ended up telling them I couldn't agree to any of it. Leon had already quit and sold his shares, which I had on paper, so I was not going to hire him again because I didn't trust him at all. Kathy's proposal was unreasonable because our daughter did not deserve to go back and forth every other weekend simply to see her mother. She should have considered these things before moving to Boston. This is absolutely not my fault. They began to dispute with me, saying they were willing to compromise since they did not want to fight this in court. I told them that the thought of fighting for what they wanted in court and actually winning was ridiculous. They only wanted to bargain with me in person because they believed they could manipulate me. Unfortunately, I was not weak or stupid enough to believe any of this. The only reason I'd come to meet them was to put an end to this. That actually silenced them, since they realized they'd never win if this went to court. I told them that the most I could do for them, or Kathy in particular, was to talk to our daughter and get her to meet Kathy whenever she came to visit. Aside from that, I wasn't doing anything, so they could take or leave it. I wasn't going to waste any more of my time arguing with them. Kathy seemed desperate, so she consented quickly, and I left. I will talk to my daughter when she feels better, but I will not compel her to do anything she does not want to do. If she decides she doesn't want to see her mother again, that is her choice. I am not going to convince her. Update 5. Hello, a few months have gone by. In my last update, I stated that I would not push my daughter to meet her mother if she did not wish to. I next spoke with my daughter, telling her what I had said to Kathy. She stated that she wanted some time to consider things over, so I expressed this to Kathy a few months back. Since then, we have not communicated. I'm not sure if she and Leon have settled their differences. I don't care. According to what I know, they are still together and living in Boston. Good for them, I suppose. At least they've left me alone, so I can now start to move on. That's exactly what I'm doing. The best revenge is to live well, therefore I'm focusing on working and growing my kid to be a wonderful human being, unlike her mother. Basically, I hope I am successful in doing so. Refused to babysit on the family vacation. Now my sister is furious. My parents are involved and the whole trip might be cancelled. At 23, I've often been assigned the roles of assistants and babysitter on family outings. I had to move out of my parents' house because I was constantly being forced to watch my 3 nephews. Last summer, we went on a family vacation to the seashore. I traveled with my parents, who paid for my hotel room. However, I had to share a room with 3 loud boys because my sister and her husband preferred a separate room. I was promised time to do my own thing throughout the vacation, but I ended up needing to help with the kids. I protested to everyone about it and was told that I was there for free. We only did one thing I wanted: visit an art gallery. I enjoy doing this anytime I'm at the coast, but the kids found it dull. This year, my parents have a beach trip planned for June, and they figured I'd be riding the same route as last year. I refused. I stated that I would drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay to have my own room. My parents were surprised and attempted to remind me of the cost. I told them not to worry. I have a nice job and a decent operating automobile, so I can easily afford it. That's when the but began. I enumerated the reasons why I will drive alone and pay for my own room. I want to enjoy my vacation as an adult rather than being treated like a child, like I was last year. My parents informed my sister, and she called to yell at me, saying I'd be spoiling the holiday if I was off doing my own thing while she had to wrangle her 3 boys. I ended myself ranting at her, pointing out how all she did last year was drag me into her mess. I didn't get to do much of what I wanted and was seen as the bad guy for simply wanting to go to an art gallery. I'm a grown man who deserves his own vacation. My sister has stopped speaking to me and my parents are still trying to persuade me to ride with them to keep the peace. I am still refusing, but the pressure is getting to me. Am I a jerk for not giving in? I know they'll struggle if they don't have someone to aid them. Edit. My sister, who appears to be a Reddit lurker, saw my post less than an hour after I wrote it. She's furious with me and upset that no one in the comments agrees with her. She went on a rant about how difficult it is to be a parent to triplets, and how the least I could do was help because I am young and unmarried. She stated she needed a break. I kept my position, and now she is contacting our parents to get them involved. I expect a call from them any minute. Update. Now that I'm off work, I can tell you more about what happened. To put it simply, it is over. My sister got our parents involved. They glanced at my post and were startled by the number of comments. Yes, they're upset with me for writing here, but I reminded them that if they'd just listened to me from the beginning, I wouldn't have had to. I'm tired of the keep the peace mentality that makes me a sacrifice for my sister. In turn, they went off on her, and the entire vacation was cancelled. The hotel hadn't been booked yet, but my parents are bickering with my sister, who is blaming me, and my nephews are sobbing because they won't be going to the beach. My sister contacted me at lunch and hinted that I have no life, therefore I have time to help her. I filmed that and informed our parents, which is what they are currently fighting about. Small update. I was not going to update again, but here's a little more. My parents claimed they would never force me to babysit my nephews again and agreed that what happened last year was unfair. They're currently furious with my sister for telling me that I should help her since she believes I have no life. My sister is playing the victim, while my brother-in-law is mainly out of the picture, spending his time at work. Thank you to everyone who commented. You made my day. Update 1. My parents apologized, but my sister didn't, at least not first. I created this throwaway account a week ago to see if I was the jerk. It turned out that I was anything but. I have too much to say to publish an update on AITA, so a friend suggested I come here. Posting on the jerk, literally opened a Pandora's box among the family. Basically, my parents and older sister were extremely comfortable with me assisting with the care of my young triplet nephews. I didn't leave home until I was 22 since I was attempting to save money while also attending college. A scholarship covered a lot, and living at home protected me from going into debt because I was also working part-time. I am very grateful for this. However, after college, everyone treated me as if I had limitless free time and persuaded me to accompany them on a family trip. During this so-called vacation, I was compelled to babysit my 3 6-year-old nephews. I had to share a motel room with them, and trust me, those youngsters didn't listen to a word I said. They did not behave the first night until I contacted their mother twice. Even so, I was considered the bad guy for wanting to do other things on the trip. It seemed as if it wasn't something the entire family enjoyed, it wouldn't happen. This was highly hypocritical because I too am family and was not involved in the voting. You can bet I discussed this issue with my parents following my previous post, and they admitted they were incorrect. After that dreadful vacation last year, I decided it was time to move out, and I did so before the summer was up. This astonished everyone because I gave them no notice. I obtained a terrific job very immediately after graduation owing to an internship, and I utilized the move as an excuse to reduce my commute from 45 minutes to 15. My sister despised it the most because it meant no more free babysitting on weekends, but she still attempted to force me to do it. I caved occasionally, usually after being tempted with pizza, and this became the new normal. But then, last month, my parents revealed plans for another family trip to the same location down the coast, and they essentially wanted everything to proceed the same way. I quickly recognized it for what it was, a trap. I knew that if I rode with my parents and allowed them to pay for the hotel rooms, I would be taken advantage of again. So I casually mentioned that I would drive and pay for myself, and that's when the storm began. When my parents realized they couldn't entrap me like previously, they turned to borderline begging, and my sister practically tried to force me to go along with the flow by gaslighting. Newsflash, I didn't. After refusing to give in to my sister's demands, I made the Am I the Jerk article following days of pestering. My sister discovered the post in less than an hour. What followed was Pandora's box. Initially, the family was against me. My sister called our parents, and they called me when I still had some time to talk in the morning. My folks were on the phone with me as they read my post. I inquired if they thought anything in the post was a lie. They skirted the issue by calling the piece an exaggeration, but I pointed out other elements that proved it to be rather accurate. Then I instructed them to check the remarks. There were already way too many to read. I kept refreshing the website on my own computer and informing them how many comments there were. Then I informed them I was weary of their approach to keeping the peace by pressuring me to please my sister. I mentioned I was out of time and that we would have to resume later. My parents were absolutely frightened that hundreds, if not thousands of people had commented in a matter of hours. Later, I informed them that the numbers had nearly doubled and were continuously increasing, which only added to their anguish. I guess they were forced to reflect on their own behavior. My sister tried to call me while I was at work, but my phone was set to mute until my lunch break, so she could only leave messages and texts. She was persistent and got through to me when I was eating my lunch. The gist of the talk was that my post had pushed our parents away from her side, and they were now angry with her. My parents canceled the entire vacation after their dispute. Yes, they eventually admitted that they simply passed the blame out of embarrassment and accepted full responsibility. They told me that no justification could justify making me their go-to free babysitter when I no longer lived at home. They attempted to backtrack a little by pointing out that they never charged me rent when I was in college, but I reminded them that children do not beg to be born, and I was working hard to make my own way. Then I mentioned that my father had the same advantage because his parents allowed him to live at home for free while in college. That very much ended whatever dispute my folks had left. When my sister called me at lunch, I explained the situation to her, and she revealed her true colors. She intimated that I had no life and that my free time on weekends should be spent assisting her because she is exhausted and unable to go out without her children unless they are being watched. She is a stay-at-home mother whose husband earns a respectable living. They reside in a decent house that is owned rather than rented. To be honest, my nephews aren't really my responsibility. They simply imposed them on me and expected it to stay that way. My sister abruptly hung up on me, but I had recorded the conversation and played it for my parents later. They were outraged and basically went to war with my sister. She dug her heels in, blamed me, and then reaffirmed her idea that my existence should center around her. I told her that was the most narcissistic and entitled thing she had ever said about me. It took days, but her husband eventually intervened and pushed her to apologize to me. I'd never seen her so intimidated by anyone, but she was on the point of tears. It was later revealed that one of the reasons I was the go-to babysitter was that my sister did not trust others. It was never about the money, or was it? My brother-in-law assumed my sister was paying me for the time I spent after her children after I moved out of my parents' home. She didn't even give me petrol money, just enough money to get pizza for myself and the kids and keep the rest. For months, my sister had been shortchanging me. He yelled at her when this came out during her half-hearted apologies, and she was obliged to pay me what she owed, all from her own savings, which she appeared to be upset about. Then my brother-in-law apologized to me for his own passivity in allowing my sister to walk all over me and vowed to get a regular babysitter from now on. Yes, it will cost them a little money, but my sister will be able to reclaim her date nights. Then there was the family meeting the other evening. We all convened at my parents' place, and everything was laid bare, with apologies all around. My parents reinstated the family vacation, and I still intend to drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay. If my sister tries to relegate me to childcare duties, I'll stay in an entirely different hotel. I've said this, and she has guaranteed me that it will not happen. If I don't post again after my vacation in another month or two, you'll know everything is fine. Update 2. My sister contacted me and demanded that I take down my posts. Knowing how far it has spread has made her much more upset than she was previously. Having a family that is aware of your Reddit account has its drawbacks. My sister called me yesterday after I got off work to see whether any comments were still pouring in. She stated that she cannot take the negativity of looking at them because all of the comments are harmful to her. I was brutally honest. At least 10 comments come in every day and the majority of them say the same thing about her. She began crying and requesting that I erase my Reddit postings, but I refused, telling her that she could cry to anybody she wanted, but the posts would remain since they were my promise that she would no longer treat me badly. After all, she felt like my life should revolve around hers, didn't pay me the babysitting money she was due, pocketed it for herself and forced me to be the continuous babysitter on last year's family vacation, so I had almost no pleasure at all. Is it any surprise that people dislike her so much after she treated me so badly? My sister yelled and hung off when I indicated that the posts had already spread to other websites since I had been approached a couple of times to allow an article about my position to be written, as well as some videos. My parents immediately contacted and begged me to take down the post. I declined, claiming that I only did this because they did not stand up for me. This would never have happened if they had told my sister to treat me as an equal rather than a servant. I am not her butler, babysitter, or handyman. I am her freaking brother and a mature man. Wouldn't they be bored of this bullshit if they were in my situation? They agreed, but asked me to take down the posts. I refused, saying I'd keep creating more if they didn't start standing up for me when my sister cried to them. Allow her to clean up her own messes, because their enabling of her has led to this. I didn't father those children. I have my own life, a new career and, ideally, a girlfriend. As there is someone I want to ask out. I am moving forward in my life and I will not be held back. They could either get out of my way or continue enabling my sister, but I warned them that the latter would end horribly for them. The only way for this Reddit post to stop is if the drama does. I've kept everything anonymous and I have the right to express my reasonable frustrations. My mother cried, and my father remained silent. I replied, tears don't move me. You know what it will take to put an end to this. Quit enabling my sister. My sister called me again, yelling that our parents had informed her they were no longer dealing with this and that she should figure it out on her own. Oh, and they told her to be kinder to me too. I imagined her eye twitching as she shouted within after hearing that. Be friendly to my little brother. What's this? Should I search it up on Google? Yeah, I was that sarcastic to her, but it made her weep too. When I hung up, my brother-in-law called me later to hear my side of the story. He was upset that I was still posting and that it had made his wife cry. I explained everything to him, and he promised to talk to my sister again. I'm hoping the drama stops here, but the family vacation is still scheduled for late June. I've already booked my room and requested a day off from work so that we can all travel on Friday. My room is also not near the ones that my parents, sister, Bill and nephews will use. In actuality, it is not on the same floor. When we go to the shore, if it is not a family activity, I will go where I want and do whatever I want. You can guarantee I'll visit those art galleries, eat local cuisine and simply relax for a change. Update 3. After the family vacation. The family vacation has come to an end, and as expected, some good and terrible things happened. The good news is that my parents refused to let my sister force me to babysit. Oh, she did try. The bad news is that my sister attempted to find out which room I was in, but she failed and got into trouble with her husband again. To begin, I informed the hotel ahead of time that they were not to disclose any of my personal information to anyone who inquired, with the exception of the police in the event of a major incident. They told me over the phone that they wouldn't tell anyone. On the day of our vacation, I left earlier than the rest of the family. I knew they wouldn't be able to move as a group until 10 a.m., so I left at 9 a.m. Check-in wasn't until 1 p.m., so I wanted to get a jump start. I sent out an FYI group text and took off like a shot to make the 3-hour drive. My parents were furious because they had planned a family brunch on the way, but I pointed out that I had never been informed of this, so it was cancelled in favor of fast food, as I had intended. I arrived at the hotel too early to check in, but I informed the desk staff that I was there to ensure that neither my parents nor my sister received any of my information. They claim they don't do it, but I told them I know it does happen on occasion, so I'm covering my ass. I informed them that they might be dealing with my mother, sister, and 3 potentially weeping sons attempting to guilt them at the desk, and they should not give in. I wanted to know if they tried anything. They clumsily promised me that no one else would have access to my room. Then I decided to go out and get some food. When I returned more than an hour later, there were my parents' cars and Bill's large SUV. I walked to the desk to check in, first ensuring that the foyer was clear, which it was. I asked the clerk whether my family had inquired about me and where I was staying at the motel. They did, but the clerk refused to inform them. My sister supposedly tried to press it, but her husband silenced her. I checked in, walked to my room, and called my parents. I didn't disclose anything they tried with the cashier, and they also didn't mention it. Then we all got together as a family to tour about. My sister once asked me to watch her kids for a moment, and I said, hell no, since I knew precisely what she was doing. She'd pretend to be gone for a moment before disappearing for an hour. I called her out, and her husband warned her to quit trying to force me to care for their children. What did my sister do? She just started bawling on the spot, claiming she needed a break. Her husband chastised her, stating he was exhausted but didn't complain. My mother gave me a terrible look, so I went up to her and told her that if she believes I should be monitoring those kids, I'm leaving this family vacation right now. It is not my job, and I am weary of her and my sister acting as if it were. That made my mother weep as well, and she just kept saying, "You're right," over and over. This is another old ploy of hers. She tries to appear miserable in order to guilt me. But I simply said, "I am right," and walked away. My mother and sister did not try anything else for the remainder of the day. When we returned to the hotel after dinner, my family crowded the elevator, but I didn't join them. They questioned why, and I replied that I would wait for the next one. My sister stared at me, knowing exactly what I was doing. Then I sat in the lobby for 15 minutes, watching YouTube on my phone before taking the elevator up. I was on a different floor, on the opposite end of the hotel. I had a wonderful night, and the next morning, we all went out to breakfast, but I made sure they left first. I was the last to leave, just as I had been the previous night. Breakfast went well, and then I said that I was going to do my own thing for the day. My mother brought up plans to go to the aquarium and a couple of other places, so I agreed to meet them there, but the rest of the day was mine until family dinner. They accepted this, and the day went well. Back at the motel that evening, however, my sister caught me leaving my room. She must have been stalking the entire floor looking for me. I returned to my room to relax a little before supper because I was exhausted after walking so much. When I left my room to join them for dinner, my sister was just down the hall. She tried to corner me and accuse me of ruining her family vacation because it was now no different for her than being at home, with her kids to manage. I nicknamed it Bullpit because my parents were quite helpful to her. Then I informed her that I was sick of being her scapegoat, and it was already finished, so leave me alone and get on with your life. Then I began walking, while she yelled, "Hey, I'm trying to talk to you." I told her I didn't care and was going to supper. She accompanied me to the elevator, and we said nothing to one another. I didn't keep quiet about it though. I told my parents and brother-in-law that my sister had stalked me to find my room. She was scolded as a child. She had a pity party, but I encouraged her to stop it and grow up. The days when she could impose her will on me were over. Then I left the lobby and got into my car. This time I was the first one at dinner. When everyone else arrived, my sister appeared depressed, but nothing was spoken about what had happened before, which was good with me. My sister avoided making any contact with me during the evening. This time, I didn't care about riding in the elevator with the rest of them, and I told them straight out that unless there was an emergency, no one would come knocking on my door. I hung a "Do Not Disturb" sign for a reason. Everything went well on the final day. My sister and mother didn't disturb me at all. They had fully succumbed by this point. Yes, I did play with my nephews throughout the vacation. I am not a complete jerk. I did not stonewall them. I continued to be the fun uncle, but not the babysitter uncle. The children didn't appear to care, they just wanted to play. I also bought each of them a small baggie containing crystals and polished stones to take home as a souvenir. My sister and her husband had some minor arguments, but I didn't pay much attention to them. Overall, I'd call the vacation a success since it finally got home for my mother and sister that the old way of doing things with me was done, and I now have my own life. Update 4. Mother and sister viewed my last post. They don't know when to leave well enough alone. Hey mom and sis, I told you that if you didn't stop I'd go back to Reddit, and here I am. The short version is that when my mother and sister saw my last post, they freaked out. My sister had been following my account for days, knowing I would post. So what did she expect? That I'd simply say everyone had a wonderful time. She called and cried, claiming that I made her look like a bad mother. I responded, well, if the glass slipper fits. My sister continued to argue with me, but I asked her to point out any lies in the post. She attempted multiple times, but I pointed out that every detail was accurate. So what does she do? She calls mommy. Then my mother arrived at my door and demanded that I erase all of the posts. I told her no, and now I have additional ammunition. I ended up making her leave in tears. Later, I called my mother and father and simply told them that their enabling of my sister was the root cause of the prior family dynamic. I'll never go back to the way things were, so if they have any hope left, I'm extinguishing it forever. My parents then begged my sister, for the love of God, stop blaming me and leave me alone. They can't handle the stress of my revenge anymore. My sister had a literal no one loves me pity party, and my parents had to bring her back to reality. My brother-in-law hasn't called. I believe he's being neutral, but this can't be good for his marriage or my familial connection to him. Out of respect for my brother-in-law, I apologize, but your wife pushed me too far. Currently, my parents are asking that my sister get treatment since she cannot be a mother while also juggling her old habits. Woman up, as they say. In any case, I hope this will be my last post. Do you hear that, sis? If you don't stop thinking I should have been your personal slave, babysitter, watchdog and so on, and continue to act as if the entire world is against you because you can't lord over me, we can't be together. If you're willing, maybe we can get along and move on from this bullshit. Do not give me a reason to write anything else. From now on, I will only publish stuff about myself and the treatment I receive from others. Treat me as a nice human being, and this will be over. Capiche? Update. My parents and I had a long conversation in which they apologized, and we've decided that I'll keep my distance until Thanksgiving. I also had a man-to-man conversation with my brother-in-law last night over several cold beers. He warned my sister that she needed counseling or he would leave her, and they are currently looking for a counselor. He also told me that while my sister was an absolute devil to me at home, she is a really caring and endearing wife, albeit she admits that she enjoyed being an only kid. We are over a decade apart in age, so my sister harbored hatred for a long time and allowed it to build up. She's accepted that she does need counseling, and they'll go as soon as it's scheduled. They've also recruited a certified babysitter to care for my nephews. Aside from that, my brother-in-law stated that he was unhappy with me but did not intervene when I needed him, so we agreed that this was all simply a horrible situation that needed to be resolved. We're going to let it slumber in peace from now on. Finally, these posts helped me get a girlfriend. After reading them, the girl I loved suspected it was me and was waiting for me to say something. We'll be out on our first date tonight, so I want to thank everyone here for their overwhelming support. I truly needed it.